It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Great panel for you. It's kind of old home week. Sam Abul Samad joins us. My car guy. Doc Rock joins us from Hawaii. And Stacey Higginbotham from This Week in Google. We are going to talk, I think, a lot about Apple's new proposed child pornography protections. Some say it's a privacy invasion. Others say, think of the children. This is not an easy one, but we'll go deep on this. We'll talk about Google's reveal of the Pixel 6. It's kind of an interesting choice when they've got a new 5A coming along next week. And Firefox lost 50 million users last year, almost 20% of its total. Is that a bad thing? I think it is. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more coming up next. It's going to be a fun twit. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 835, recorded Sunday, August 8th, 2021. A straw man without legs. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Modern Finance. The financial landscape is harder than ever to navigate, but you don't have to do it alone. Download and subscribe to Modern Finance from Kevin Rose, wherever you listen to podcasts, and get ahead of the future of finance. And by ZipRecruiter. Over 2/3 of Americans are planning to travel this summer. That means airlines, restaurants, and more are ramping up their hiring. Who do they turn to? ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter's technology finds qualified candidates for your job and invites them to apply. Right now, you can try ZipRecruiter free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. And by Udacity. Gain in-demand tech skills in as little as 3 months with Udacity's part-time online tech courses. Visit Udacity.com/twit and get 75% off any program with the code TWIT75. Limited time offer. And by AT&T Active Armor. We rely so much on our phones these days and are always on them, whether it's live streaming content, catching up with family on weekly video calls, or watching your favorite podcast. There's no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor. 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/activearmor for details. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the latest tech news with the dream team, people we've pulled in from our larger Twit family. And boy, we got a good family this week. I wish this were Thanksgiving. Joining us from This Week in Google, the wonderful Stacey Higginbotham. Stacey on IoT.com, at Giga Stacey on the Twitter. She's does that podcast, the IoT podcast with Kevin Toffel. It's so nice to see you on a Sunday instead of a Wednesday. Thank you for doing this, Stacey.
Thank you for inviting me. I felt like I abandoned y'all for 2 weeks, so I had to come back early.
Yeah, we did miss you on Twig.
I missed y'all.
Yeah, but we're glad you're here for Twit. Actually, I'm really glad because we're going to start off with a tough topic, but I'll get to that in a second. Also with us, Doc Rock. He's a creator. It says so on his T-shirt, youtube.com/Doc Rock from Honolulu. Hello, Doc.
How you doing? Good to see you here.
I feel so bad. I forgot you live in Oahu, and when we were there, we should have called, and I apologize, but it just gives me an excuse to go back because we love
there you go.
Island.
That's better.
It is beautiful. We fell in love. I understand why you stayed. You fell in love too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something about no snow and not having to deal with buying different clothes. One set of clothes lasts all year.
Doc is also the community manager at Ecamm. You might see the Ecamm hat. We'll talk about Ecamm in a little bit, but I know Micah still loves his Ecamm setup, lets him work from home.
I still use Ecamm.
There you go.
Oh, what? Oh, I didn't know that, Stacey.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Anything you need, I got you. I actually had Rosemary on my show not that long ago, and we nerded out over shortcuts forever. And all she could say is, "Oh my God, I love this. It's so cool." So yeah,
I'll have to go check that out. I had no idea. All
You
right.
see already that's happening, the magic. Also, from Ypsilanti, Michigan, it is Sam Ebel-Samad, my car guy, podcaster, wheelbearings.media, principal researcher at Guidehouse Insights. He's on my radio show every Sunday. Just talk to him, actually. Hi, Sam.
Hello, Leo, and good to meet you, Doc Rock and Stacey.
Oh, I should have introduced you. I didn't know. I just assume everybody knows everybody. Anyway.
Well, we kind of met each other before you came into the studio.
Oh, good. And we've seen pictures of your wedding now in Kauai, so I think we're family. I think we count. The big story of the week, and it's actually a developing story. Apple announced on Thursday that they are going to start implementing in iOS 15 new child safety measures. In fact, if you go to apple.com/child.safety, you can read about this. And, on the face of it, when I first read it, I thought, well, this seems like a smart way to do it. I'll explain quickly what they're doing so that we can then have a good conversation about why it's the worst thing ever, because apparently privacy advocates, including the EFF, the Center for Democracy and Technology, a lot of cryptographers and others are very upset about this. So there's an organization called the National Center for Exploited and Missing Children. It's a non-governmental nonprofit, but it is funded by the U.S. government, NCMEC, I'll call it, that has a database of child pornography, or CSAM, child sexual abuse material. You'll hear those acronyms a lot in this conversation, NCMEC and CSAM. So the NCMEC database is a fingerprint database. It's a hash, a cryptographic hash of a lot of awful child pornography images, actual specific images, each of which have been fingerprinted. And the fingerprinting they do is done in such a way that even if the image is cropped or later turned into a black and white image or modified in some way, the fingerprint does not change. So that hash is specific to that image. You should also know that it's not specific to whatever the image is of. It is that picture. So you could take a picture of a car, hash it. Another picture of the same car would not have the same fingerprint. So those fingerprints are tied directly to a specific pornographic image, child porn image. So this database has been around for a while. In fact, it's my understanding companies have been using this for a while. Facebook, Google, and others have been using this for a while. Apple plans, starting with iOS 15, to put a copy of this database on your device, and then to create a fingerprint of images that you send through messages, whether it's SMS or data only, images you upload to iCloud, images you download from iCloud. To run that hash, you can do it locally on the iPhone, and then compare the fingerprint. Important, according to Apple's white paper, Apple does not learn about anything about images that don't match the database. Apple cannot access metadata or visual derivatives for matched images until a threshold of matches is exceeded. They do not say what that threshold is. Is it one picture? Is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 100? They don't say, but there is some threshold. It's apparently not just one picture matching. You have to have more than one. The risk, they say, of the system incorrectly flagging an account is extremely low. And if there's a report going to be made, so two things can happen. If there's a match and you match the threshold, so if there's some number of matches, if it's on a child's phone under 13, the parents will be notified. If it's on an adult's or somebody 13 or older's phone, after that threshold is passed, a image will be sent, a low-quality image will be sent to Apple, which will be reviewed by a human. If it does, in fact, match that known CSAM image, then they will notify NCMEC. It says users can't access or view the database of known images. Users can't identify which images were flagged. So Apple's trying to create a system that it respects privacy, but still does something about child pornography. This is something every company is worried about because apparently there's a lot of child pornography. The internet's widely used to distribute it and store it. So Apple doesn't want to be doing that. In fact, they have up to now been among the big tech companies the slowest to report CSAM images on their servers. This is an image that Apple distributed of how the hashes work. If you're, it will now. Here's one thing that does concern people. It will also match against your iCloud photos. But
it doesn't match against. I think it's important to confirm that it doesn't match pictures. Like if I took a picture of my toddler in the bathtub.
No, it's not looking for.
It is not going to match.
No,
right. It's not looking for that. It's only looking for pictures of that have already been identified as child porn.
Yeah,
correct.
Yes.
And that's fairly important. There have been a number of mainstream media outlets that have actually gotten that wrong and said that they're looking for a certain amount of nudity or things like that. It doesn't work that way. It is merely a cryptographic hash against known child porn images. So
you mentioned that this can detect if you've cropped the image or resized it or done various other things to it, that it can still recognize the image. And machine vision systems are not that reliable in general. I mean, how do we have any information about how accurate this actually is?
Their false positive thing was something like
hold on. They're not able to. They're not looking for. This is a child. What they're looking for, they've got a set of pixels.
It's not face recognition at all.
When they're creating these hashes, what they're doing is they're taking a set of, and computers are actually really good at this because they're not turning this into meaning. They don't know what they're looking at. They're looking at a set of pixels, which is why if you crop it, they can still recognize X number of those pixels and match it back to the original. So that's
it's a hash.
Is it doing the hash based on initially on some subset, like some part of maybe the middle of the image, so that if you do crop it, you're still capturing that part of it? Because a hash, if you take a binary file and you hash it, if you change one bit in that file, it changes the hash.
That's right. This is called.
So that's what I'm trying to understand.
I'll read from here we go. I'll read from Apple's white paper. They call it a neural hash. It is. You're right in this, a perceptual hashing function that maps images to numbers. Perceptual hashing bases this number, this hash, this fingerprint on features of the image instead of precise pixel values. So you're exactly right, Sam.
So it is doing a machine vision system and then hashing that.
It says the system computes these hashes by using an embedding network to produce image descriptors and then converting those descriptors to integers using what they call a hyperplane local sensitivity hashing process so that different images produce different hashes. And they give an example here of two different images of a palm tree that have the same neural hash, but then a third image that has different content and different hash. Doc Rock, you were about to say that the rate of false positives is very low, in the order of 1 to a billion or something?
No, it was in the trillions.
Trillions.
That was the point. Is like, I think one thing, people get freaked out because they think there's going to be false positives. But I have this conversation with my friends all the time because I think people hear the word billion and they hear the word trillion, but they don't know how to put something to it.
Right.
So there was a guy a long time ago that made a text file that was literally a billion as put out as like ones and zeros or something. And the text file was like stupid long. Like, this has 1 billion characters in it, right? Just to show somebody, like, you'd be scrolling that thing for like 40 minutes to get to the bottom of the text file. I use one that kind of if you take, say the person who identifies of the Christian faith, if I gave you $1 every day since the person you look up to was born, I'd be at 740 some odd million. I'm still not at 1 billion.
Yeah.
So like, billion is a very big number. Trillion is
even bigger.
More than that. The false positive things that they've put into effect has been good. And everyone's mad because Apple won't talk about like how they're doing it. Well, if we tell you how we're doing it, man, then the people can figure out how to undo it.
They're pretty clear. This white paper is pretty clear. But
yeah, they left some stuff out.
So we should flatten this notion that you might be fingered incorrectly. That's a very, 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 very low probability. That's not the problem with this. But people do have, not just people, some pretty serious people have an issue with it. This is a letter that is circulating now, has last count 1,800 signatures from well-known cryptographers, privacy and security experts. It's at appleprivacyletter.com, an open letter against Apple's privacy invasive content scanning technology. Now, I'll point out my initial reaction to what Apple's doing after reading all of the material Apple put out was, this seems like they want to do something about child pornography, and they're trying to do it responsibly. But I have to confess, I've been convinced otherwise, first by this letter and then by a caller to the radio show, but I'll explain that in a second. This letter says, while child exploitation is a serious problem and while efforts to combat it are almost unquestionably well-intentioned, and then this part's in bold, Apple's proposal introduces a backdoor that threatens to undermine fundamental privacy protection for all users of Apple products. And the reasoning the EFF gives, the CDT gives, and somebody I really respect, Dr. Matthew Green of Johns Hopkins, gives, is that it is a slippery slope. And at first I thought, is it a slippery slope?
I hate slippery slope arguments.
Well, that's the thing. Is there a problem with the way they're doing it right now? No. But at first I thought slippery. I had the same reaction. Ugh, a slippery slope. Everything's a slippery slope. Everything can get worse. But you don't act today on what's going on today on the potential that it could get worse, because everything's a slippery slope. If you do that, everything can get worse. Matthew Green said yesterday, we were gradually headed toward a future where less and less of our information had to be under the control and review of anyone but ourselves. For the first time since the 90s, we were taking our privacy back. Today, we're on a different path. And this is the slippery slope people are talking about. The pressure is going to come from the UK, from the US, from India, from China. I'm terrified about what it's going to look like. Why would Apple want to tell the world, hey, we've got this tool? Now, I want to get your opinions, all of you. I'm just going to say one more thing, and I'll stop talking. A guy called Joe. Hello. A guy named Joe who is in Brooklyn. That's okay, Stacey. We know your dog. That means some wonderful delivery is coming, right? She's run off to silence the animal. Joe, who's a regular in our chat room and our Discord server as a Club Twit member from Brooklyn, very reasonable, said, okay, here's why this is potentially a problem. Now that Apple has said we could do this, the issue is governments coming to them saying, well, okay, I got a new database, and I want you to do the same thing for that database. And the problem is when you're operating in a country like China or Saudi Arabia or Russia, they can do that. And so the premise is, well, what if the Saudi Arabia, where it's illegal to be gay, said, I have a database of images of gay people. I want you to also check against that. Or there's actually a terrorist database with so-called terrorist images. The Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism has created a similar fingerprint database, but no one knows what's in that database because there's no external oversight. What's to keep, this is what the EFF's talking about, that what's to keep the U.S. government or China or Russia or any other government from saying, Apple, if you want to do business in our country, in addition to that NECMEC database, we've got a database of terrorist images we want you to flag. Can Apple at that point say, well, okay, we'll do it for child pornography, but we're not going to do it for you? In which case the country can say, well, then you're not going to do business in our country. In fact, I would submit Apple's already opened this door by saying we can do it. It's too late. What are your thoughts, Stacey?
Okay. So first, this database has existed for a while and is used for Facebook. So it's not that the feds are unaware that this is possible. So that's one. I don't think Apple has opened any door that hasn't already been there. Two, this is such a tough issue because we're basically putting the potential human rights violations of governments against the rights of children. Or rather, solving a documented and real problem with child pornography. And this gets to the heart of what I always talk about and think about as we're building out the tools for what will essentially become a potential surveillance society, right? And we have to grapple with these issues, not just by saying, I'm going to ban this tool, or I'm going to fundamentally break this tool by, adding encryption, or maybe I'm banning the tool by saying we can't have cell phone photos. I mean, that horse is out of the barn. So now what we have to do is we have to figure out, and this is hard, does a company have a moral obligation to people in other countries, or do they have a moral obligation to their shareholders to make as much money as possible? And we can't say that Saudi Arabia is not going to ask Apple to do this, for example. What we can say is Apple, maybe don't give in to them. And the issue here isn't, I know this is a fraught issue, and I understand that this is fundamentally, it has the potential to be a huge problem. And I was like, ugh, slippery slope. I see the slippery slope. I've seen it before, but we deal with this in regulations all the time. That's the point of making regulations, is saying, this is the line we're going to go to today, and this is where it's going to stop. And as you see, we move back and forth over this line over time as MLK would say, the moral arc of the universe shifts. So the question then becomes, what do we expect from Apple? What do we expect our government to do? What kind of rules can we put in place? It's not to say shove this horse back into the barn, because it's already out. We have this capability. Everyone knows we have this capability. We're going to have more cameras in more places, which means other people who have less privacy-focused values as Apple are going to be able to offer this as well. So let's have this conversation, and let's see where we can draw these lines. Let's understand where other governments are going to draw those lines, and then let's work from there. That's it.
The issue Joe brought up, and I think it was appropriate, was when Apple operates in another country, it doesn't matter what we say. It's what China says. So when China said to Apple, no more VPNs in the App Store, Apple didn't have a choice of complying. They only had a choice of leaving China. Right. And that's a big, Apple's not going to leave China. It's too big for their business. So what we could say is, well, yeah, Apple should only do business in the United States. I mean,
yeah, that's the choice we have to make.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think Apple's going to do that. That's
right. Well,
Google left China, but to be fair, Google didn't have a lot of business in China. Apple does.
But if everyone from a Western country, if China or Saudi Arabia says, let's just go gay people in Saudi Arabia, or the Uyghurs in China, I mean, it's documented what China is doing there. But and there are plenty of companies that are complicit in that work with the U.S. If someone wants to make that their goal, they could come up to Apple and say, look, you are killing gay people. This is theoretical, killing gay people in Saudi Arabia. Don't listen to their government. If everybody in the EU and everybody in the US decided to boycott them.
Right.
I mean, part of this is like.
But we don't do that. Apple is doing that in China, and no one's saying get out of China, Apple, because it's not okay with us.
Right.
So this is the problem. All right, Doc Rock, your turn.
All right.
Where do you come down on this? I'm sure you have an opinion.
Of course I do. I think that solving this issue is bigger than the fear of a bunch of people in the room freaking out over what might happen later. And here's why. I know that sounds kind of glib, but here's why. There are people that right now that if the emergency came up, you had to go somewhere, you could take your child to and hand it to them and trust them to care for that kid for a week.
Yes.
Why? Because the reputation of the relationship you've built with them and the way that they behave, the way they hold themselves, their core values, if you will. From now backwards, there has been no other company whose core value has been more about your privacy than any other large tech companies. And yes, they're not perfect. Nobody is. But they've been the best in the business, right? So they're going to take your stuff and do something with it for you, Joe Schmo on a personal level? No, not going to happen, right? if you look at the lovely charts from Jason that you love so much, like Apple could probably walk away from Saudi Arabia and not care because they cover it sooner or later, right? China's a little bit harder, but they also have a better pushback to China too. Everyone thinks, well, they won't walk away from China because of the amount of business they do in China. Well, guess what? One of the things that they have in their strength is the same amount of business that they do in China. Apple pulling out of China pulls out billions of dollars from China. So China's not going to pull that flex any faster than Apple would pull that flex. Everyone loves to throw that one around. That one makes about as much sense as screen doors in the submarine. I've been to Foxconn. I've literally walked around the campus of Foxconn. I've been in the building where they're freezing iPads to see if they can handle it. So yeah, no, that city, Foxconn City itself, where everyone is, there's over 500,000 people working on all myriad tech, not just Apple stuff. But trust me, no one's walking away from anything. That's like, when Allen Iverson was one of the biggest jerks in the planet, but the Sixers could not get rid of him. Who was going to be the guard?
Right.
You have a brother-in-law right now you can't really stand, but that's who your sister picked. I think. Never mind. I got to get off that subject. Leo's going to get me in trouble.
Sounds like there's something you want to share with us there, Doc Rock.
But you just know what I'm saying, man.
I do know what you're saying.
Everyone loves to throw that slippery stuff around.
There is
and
a balance.
I get it.
I agree.
But there's a balance, man. Come on.
No, China. Yeah, I think Apple. China may not say to Apple, "Look, you got to do this." If Apple really says yeah, and if we have to, we're pulling out. Of course, China let Google pull out.
Well, one thing too, because I've been to China many times as well. People get VPNs before Apple had it in the stores. Like Golden Frog was my life when I went there, and so it's not that big a deal. Like China likes to throw that around because it looks good for the newspapers, but they can't stop all of the people trying to listen to what they want to listen to.
Yeah, Sam. You're gonna give us the final thought here.
I agree with most of what both Stacey and Doc had to say. I totally agree that we absolutely need to do, I think, within reason, whatever we can to address the problem of child abuse. But I also I'm troubled by this because, for a number of reasons. I mean, the things you said about, any individual government, once you have this technology in there, can pressure, force, a company to do things with it that, was not intended for it. And I think that there's because of, the work that I do around automated driving as well, I see a lot of the problems with perception systems, and which is why I brought that up originally. I think that this approach is also problematic, and while it may not lead to that many false positives right now with the way it's being used now, I can definitely see where there is the potential for a lot of errors in this. Because I see this every day, with the system, with perception systems that are being used in the technologies that I cover as an auto industry analyst. So I'm troubled by the use of a technology that is known and understood by everybody that uses it to be problematic at best. It's not as reliable as you would want it to be. And the potential for misuse of it, and not just in China or Saudi Arabia or Uganda, but even here in the United States. I mean, we have seen, in recent years, government officials that have wanted to use and abuse technology and try to force technology companies to do things. And while they, to our knowledge at least, haven't really been successful in forcing that issue yet, I see a huge risk of, if we put this technology out there, that future administrations will use it, even here in the United States, in ways that we as a citizenry don't want, that it would be undesirable, for protecting the rights of everyone in the population.
You have to think that Apple has made this calculus that I would hope,
of course they did.
They're strategically have gone down the road that we've just gone down. I mean, if they haven't, then they're not doing their job, and have made some sort of peace with themselves about what they would do should China ask them to do something like this, or should Saudi Arabia. Do you think Apple has said to themselves, okay, well, we'll say no?
Yes.
They haven't said no so far, to China, when it comes to VPNs or storing,
but surely they've
iCloud data on local servers that the Chinese government has access to.
They must understand that they've now made a step that's they're going to get some pressure. The New York Times
points. What if we talk about?
New York. Let me one more thing, and then Stacey. Yeah. The New York Times points out that U.S. law requires tech companies to flag cases of child sexual abuse to the authorities. Apple has historically flagged fewer cases than other companies. Last year, for instance, Apple reported 265 cases to NCMEC, while Facebook reported 20.3 million, according to the center's statistics. That enormous gap is due in part to Apple's decision not to scan for such material, citing the privacy of its users. Facebook has. I have to think that maybe there's more that we don't see, that perhaps Apple has already been under significant pressure from the U.S. government to do this because, 265 cases compared to 20.3 million is a pretty big discrepancy. I don't think all the child pornography is on Facebook and none of it's on Apple. I'm sure that it's comparable. Go ahead, Stacey.
I'm sure there's actually probably more because it has historically been private.
Yeah.
I would say I would love for this to open up a broader discussion about what rights people have on their phones. This has been such a gray area for the last, how long have we been doing the internet? Let's say 30 or 30 or 40 years, where we still haven't figured out the right rules for setting privacy. And I don't spend a lot of time on child porn. It's obviously super upsetting for me. It's not
horrible. Some say that's of course. Think of the children as the refuge of scoundrels.
It is.
Right? If you want to do something,
it is 100%. Yeah. Except there is actually a child porn community. There are horrific images.
It's a real problem. Yes.
So. I would love for this to be a total straw man argument, but it's a straw man with actual real legs. And so we have to pay attention to it. We can't just be like, how many is it really? Or ignore it like that. So if we had rules that say, hey, and they should follow, our Constitution and what and I know this is only in the US. I'm not talking about the rest of the world. And we have treaties that talk about that. And we should build our laws first and then talk to, adjust our treaties to meet those. But we have laws for search and seizure. We just haven't proactively talked about what that should look like as a society. We are relying on court cases, and we shouldn't be doing that anymore. We can't afford to be doing it given the technology we're deploying. That's my biggest argument here. So if this gets us to actually talk about that, great.
I'm with Stacey. I want to see it come out, and then, I know it's one of those things that's hard to say, like we'll handle that bridge when we come to it. But imagine the good that could happen between now and, say, 2 years from now when something that becomes a hassle comes up. If we could take out, let's just use that Facebook number, right? And so we take the Apple number and we match the Facebook number. Look at how much great we've done. Then if something happens 3 years from now where we got to argue with some government or whatever, so what? If they're doing 23 million a year and then we get to add, or I think that's what you said, and we add another 23 million a year to that, right? So now we're at 46 million a year that we're just squashing. And then we triple that because, hey, we're going to do this 3 years before we run into the first issue. I'll take that. It's just one of those things. It's like, Russian roulette. Sooner or later, you're going to be wrong. But let's not play it because we might be wrong way down the lane. The other thing I think we glazed over really quick, and I double-checked my math on this, if you disabled iCloud, in theory, it's not supposed to work, right? That's what it said in the paper.
Just the part of the iCloud storage, the transiting using messages. I know. I thought that was odd, and maybe I have to become more clear on that. Apple's feature, which scans photos and text messages, will be available only to families with joint iCloud accounts. If parents turn it on, their child's iPhone will analyze every photo received or sent in a text message to determine if it includes nudity. Now, I don't know if the Times got this wrong or if this is not what I read. Nude photos sent to a child will be blurred, and the child will have to choose whether to view it. That's a whole different thing. Yeah. And I don't know if the Times got that wrong. Did the Times get that wrong? That's puzzling to me.
I mean, that's not involving the hashes or anything.
I know.
That's not from the database.
That's a whole different.
That's just doing perception on the incoming images.
Yeah, and I don't think that's something. I think the Times got that wrong. They're not alone. I think the Washington Post also got this wrong, but it's unclear to me.
Did Apple announce two things that they were going to do? One on child pornography, both of which to address sending naked pictures of or to minors?
I thought it was all about fingerprinting. So I understand why people are confused. The Washington Post says Apple is prying into iPhones to find sexual predators. The moves aimed at preventing predators and pedophiles from using Apple's services raise some civil liberties concerns.
See, that they're prying into iPhones, that just automatically puts it in the negative.
It implies that that Apple's actually looking at it. And it's not. It's all done on device.
See, I can't stand when they do stuff like that because that's what the regular people read, right? We get to read each other, right? We have each other to bounce ideas off, talk these things out, try to come up with some things. And then we spend years trying to unprogram the one story that, grandma read or granddad read on the paper. And the Washington Post, hey, that's the paper, right? Well, the second paper. So, yeah, don't write headlines like that. That's irritating. Sorry.
But I have to say, John Gruber, who did a very good job of breaking it all down, concludes, will Apple actually flatly refuse any and all such demands? If they do, it's all good. If they don't, and these features creep into surveillance for things like political dissent, copyright infringement, LGBT imagery, or adult pornography, anything at all beyond the irrefutable CSAM, it'll prove disastrous to Apple's reputation for privacy protection. The stakes are incredibly high, and Apple knows it. Whatever you think of Apple's decision to implement these features, they're not doing so lightly. I have to think Apple does not want to do this, that this is not something Apple ever wanted to do, but Apple was under intense pressure to do so from somebody, and finally decided, all right, we're going to do this now because we think we can do it in a way that protects privacy, and we will worry about what happens down the road. That they compromised, in other words. But they must see the potential.
The idea of somebody calling up Apple saying, please send me images of all of the, the alphabet folks so that I can go do something heinous to them. What? I mean, what do you think Tim was going to say to that?
Our chat room says they're searching your data. It's no different than the secret police searching all homes.
Not even the same thing.
How is it different?
They're not looking. It's not a person. One, it's not like the secret police. And if it were the secret police, it would be like the secret police having blindfolds on and listening for a specific tone of something guilty. And if they hear it, they then take their blindfold off and take it.
Yeah.
That's a terrible analogy, by the way.
It is terrible, but it makes more sense than just assuming that they're searching
That's
everything.
not a terrible... That's actually not the worst analogy. I mean, that's not that different from the kinds of things that happen, for example, in East Germany, under the Stasi. They monitored people all the time, listening for stuff. So I think it's not. This is something that has happened before, and it could and probably will happen again.
AT&T had a technology. Actually, we think this was actually being done for some years under the sobriquet, was it Envoy? That the Five Eyes were scanning kind of impersonally, in an automated fashion, all phone conversations looking for words like bomb and C7 and various terrorist phrases. And they were collecting those phone calls in a database and were then later acting in some way on those.
That happened.
Yeah, that technology existed, I believe. U.S. always denied it, but Great Britain, I think, finally said, "Yeah, well, we've been doing that."
AT&T admitted it. They were working with NSA to do that.
So, and I think the country agreed that's a bad idea, right?
So going back to what Susan said, these things are already in place, people. Don't get it twisted. Don't make and even if Apple said, "Okay, we scrapped this idea, we're out," everybody else is doing it. So at least it'd be nice to have the most ethical of them all in the party, because it's happening, whether we like it or not.
Here's, to me, this boils down into an interesting question, which has come up many times before. This is a whole new category we have, the smartphone, where we are storing our lives for the first time in a single electronic device that is internet connected, and is effectively controlled by the companies that make them. Let's not deny that Apple and Google have control over these devices in a way that perhaps if you thought about it, you really wouldn't want, your secret store of all your private stuff in their hands, but you do. But that's because case law has never dealt with that before. This is kind of unknown territory for all of us, including the courts and the legal system and these companies. We are storing everything in this phone. And I think many privacy advocates, maybe I'll include myself, have said there needs to be a much higher standard of protection for these devices because we put so much in here, because we're storing so much in here.
A nuance to your argument here?
Yes.
Because it's important. Not only are we putting everything in our phone, a lot of us are uploading it to the cloud where it will stay literally forever. Combine that with the fact that we have enough cheap computing that you can analyze this data in ways that have never been analyzed and tie it together.
That's right.
In ways that implicate so it's not just that we're putting more of our lives on our phone, it's that it stays there for the entirety of our life, and it's really easy to mine that in a way that it has never been before.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yes. And to your point, the other thing, I run through this and try to explain to my family members about why they need complicated passwords. And I show them, sort of entropy screens. And I literally recently had this conversation with my 11-year-old niece. And once I explained it to her, she actually understood it probably better than the people who need it the most. But explaining to her how I could just go to Amazon and rent a couple computers to just go through all of the passwords on your computer and probably get that done before we have dinner is different from what everyone thinks. There's a guy in the basement sitting there just trying all these passwords one at a time until they get it. And I'm like, no, man, I could scan everything with a couple computers from Amazon. It cost me about $5 or $6 to rent that for a little bit and just run through everything in your computer and know everything. So you're right to that point, and it's only getting better. But then it also makes me remember to what Sam was talking about earlier. We are at the infancy of sort of neurocomputer as it is, and computing, and it's getting better. So the stuff that we're at with the false positive now and where we are with perceptual imagery now, all of that stuff is going to be in the Moore's Law curve on the way up for the next 5 or 6 years as well. So we are sort of real time battling both ends, if that makes any sense.
I think the issue is that law enforcement and people who are sworn to protect us, who really want to I'll say this, genuinely want to stop child pornography, but also protect us against all sorts of harms, look at this smart device as a treasure trove to do that. Like, we've never had anything like this before. And we desperately want to use it because we have lots of laws, and, child pornographers get arrested all the time and go to jail, as they should, using existing techniques and technologies and laws. There is this kind of, I think, false, you use the word straw man, there's this false straw man, this one does not have legs, that these modern technologies allow criminals to really act out because they can now hide what they're doing. I don't know if that's actually the case. In fact, I think there's a good case to be made that modern technologies have given police more access.
I think so.
I think they have.
It's not a going dark problem, really.
One thing to think about, and I'll just make this real personal for everyone who has children. But think about baby monitors. And I do this a lot in this, like my whole thing is the smart home. So we have put sensors around our house. And as my daughter grew up, I had to really think about the type of sensors and when was the right time to take like a camera out of her room.
Yeah.
And I think the government, if you think about it, I mean, yes, and I'm paternalistic in the sense that I have a child that I'm responsible for. The government is somewhat paternalistic in the sense that they're trying to look out for the good of their citizenry. So we have all these tools, and it's really interesting, the debate over when and how we choose to deploy it. Some parents will deploy like keystroke loggers on their kids' phone or, monitor every single site the levels are different for everyone. But if you think about the way you treat your how you safeguard your child with increasing ability thanks to technology, this is the same thing the government's trying to do, which is why I think we need to have these like discussions about where we want to draw the lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that it's also not unreasonable. I know we don't like this slippery slope argument, but historically, the fact that, we've seen this slippery slope happen, that these phones exist with all sorts of information. Law enforcement is given more and more tools, more and more power to investigate. And there's a good thread, Alex Stamos has a good thread on Twitter about this, and somebody named David responding to him said, you could catch and prevent all sorts of crime if you installed a machine learning solution on everyone's devices to monitor their activity for signs of trouble and relay them to law enforcement, but we consider such ideas unconscionable. And that's the problem is law enforcement always is going to, for now, law enforcement is always going to want more access. This phone is a treasure chest for them. So they're always going to be pushing for more. And I don't think it's unreasonable for people to say, let's not give in too easily to this, even with this very justifiable reason for this.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's not just a phone. It's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought I would say real quick, I'll make this super fast. I think we also give a little bit too much credit to government and law enforcement for what their capabilities are. They have the hardest time making a decision on what time to have lunch. Let's just get that square. If you ever want to see what pure law enforcement bungling was, go on Netflix right now and watch the story of Willie and Sal from Miami, okay? And the reason why I bring that specifically, growing up as a kid in that exact time frame, all we ever heard was the fear, and like there was all these cop shows about, the narcos taking out, these drug dealers and the war on drugs. It was just very, very talked about at our, my age bracket. Those guys went basically undetected for like 25 years. They were the largest importers of illicit drugs in the nation, and nobody even knew who they were. So it's funny, but I think we might be giving our law enforcement a little bit too much credit, and the stuff that they would be able to do to become Gestapo-like, as everyone likes to say, we're at a different time and place. I don't think they have as much power as people think they do.
All right. And we should be very clear. Nobody is advocating child abuse or child pornography. Yeah. And that's the problem with using this as the reasoning for this is if you say, no, we want to protect privacy, people assume that you're saying, screw the children. That's not what anybody is saying. It's just a very difficult problem because, and again, it is a slippery slope. It is the beginning of some sort of surveillance on a device that contains the most private information in your life. And do we want to? Where do we draw the line? I guess is the question. Go ahead, Sam.
Doc's right. That I agree that we probably do give law enforcement and government more credit for their capabilities than is probably deserved. But on the flip side of that, that doesn't mean that there's no one within government, or as I said earlier, that there won't be someone within government that will have the capability or the desire to use it and misuse it. And having that technology available to them, I think, it does set a very dangerous precedent in terms of the kind of society we want to live in. I think life inherently has some risk associated with it. And I'm not saying that, that we want to put our kids at risk. Absolutely not. But, I don't think we can ever, get to a completely utopian society where nobody does anything wrong. But I think, letting our leaders, whether they're in government or law enforcement, get the tools to try to achieve that, I think will inherently invite the potential for abuse of that. Whether it's at on a large scale or on a small scale, I don't think that that's the kind of abuse that we want to enable with those in power.
All right. It was a great conversation, and we're obviously not going to solve this problem. I suspect this is going to be a conversation that will appear on every show on the network this week. In fact, it's all we're going to read about for some time to come. I wonder if Apple will respond to this pressure or just go full speed ahead, which is typically what Apple does. They just kind of ignore. I have to say, NCMEC's response, which is telling Apple, ignore the shrieking protests and go full speed ahead, was a little tone deaf. This is I think you're exactly right, Stacey. This is something we have to talk about. We have to figure out. We have to think about deeply. I'm sure Apple has, but they need to talk to us a little bit more about their thinking. And I would like to hear assurances that we're going to draw the line. This is not going to. This isn't the beginning of incremental loss of privacy across the board.
Well, you'll have to do the same things we did with. And these are breaking down. This is why we also need to address this, like the FISA courts. And, we have to set parameters in place so people don't abuse it, because we know they will. But just to say that we're here at this juncture, it is scary. And we know that if we change things are going to change and some people will abuse it. We have to decide if we're going to move forward or not and fix this. Yeah.
It's really challenging. I'm glad we had this talk. We'll have more in just a little bit. Stacey is here. It's great to have her. Stacey Higginbotham from This Week in Google and Stacey on IoT, her great IoT podcast. Doc Rock, the creator, youtube.com/Doc Rock with his purple mic. Purple everything.
Yes.
Black outfit with purple. I like it. It's a good black and purple. Good combination.
Vibranium.
Vibranium? Really? Is that it? All right.
No. I support the Alzheimer's.org.
Oh, that's right. Alzheimer's is purple. Yeah. The Alzheimer's, yeah. While I tell you about Kevin Rose's new podcast. Kevin came to us and said, you got to tell him about modern finance. I said, Kevin, I know about modern finance. I'm a huge fan. In fact, you'll remember this, Stacey, when we started talking about NFTs, which was all the rage a few months ago. I was confused. But the very first episode of MoFi, as we fans of the podcast call it, was all about NFTs, and it made it very clear to me. The investment world, the world of modern finance has changed dramatically. Not just NFTs, there's Bitcoins, there's robo-investors. How do you know how it works, what's right for you, what it even means? Kevin Rose is the guy to explain it. Modern finance helps to demystify crypto, decentralized finance, and more. Of course, you know Kevin Rose from his years on the Screensavers on Tech TV, and he's been on all of our shows many times. We love having Kevin on whenever he can. He's a venture capitalist. In fact, according to Bloomberg, one of the top 25 angel investors in the world. He currently at True Ventures. He was at Google Ventures for a while. He has his own startups, a number of them, all of which were very successful. Time Magazine called him one of the top 25 most influential people on the web. I consider him a true friend, but also I think he's very, very good at interviewing people, at explaining things. This is a show, if you're interested in crypto, this is the show for novice and expert alike. Modern Finance. They do something interesting too. 2 shows on the one feed. They do a weekly consensus episode that's exploring weekly news, explains what it all means, breaks it down for you. The other is an interview episode with individual crypto founders, NFT artists, and others. So between the 2, you're going to get a very good understanding of what's going on in modern finance. Modern Finance will equip you to discuss and understand the crypto landscape and, maybe even more importantly, know whether or not to invest and how you should invest and what the risks are. Feel informed about what you're getting into. Don't miss out on the next big thing. Join Kevin Rose on Modern Finance every week. You don't want to miss a beat. The Modern Finance podcast. MoFi.net is the website. I call it MoFi, but probably best to search for Modern Finance on your favorite podcast application. Make sense of all the coins and the chaos. The financial landscape is harder than ever to navigate, but you don't have to do it alone. Download and subscribe to Modern Finance wherever you listen to podcasts. That's Modern Finance on every podcast player known to man. Don't be the last person on the next train out. Listen to Modern Finance and get ahead of the future of finance. I'm really proud of Kevin. In fact, I strongly suggest not only subscribing to get the new episodes, but going back and listening to some of the earlier episodes. That first episode on NFTs, as I said, absolutely clarified this in my mind. He's very good at explaining this stuff. Modern Finance. MoFi. I love it. What do you think, Stacey? Am I an optimist or a pessimist?
I think I can't tell because you're often a devil's advocate, so I really don't know.
Good.
I truly don't. I feel like I want to believe that you think people are inherently good, but you're aware that their foibles
They suck.
that sometimes
exactly.
they suck.
I'm absolutely acutely aware of the paradox of human nature.
I was going to say realist, which is kind of the same. You know, when people say, hey, is it half full or half empty? I'm like, it's always full. And like, what do you mean? Because the other half is air, dummy. Let's move on.
Actually, you're kind of like the engineer. So they say the optimist says a glass is half full. The pessimist says the glass is half empty. The engineer says the glass is the wrong size for the water, obviously. You got to redesign it. There you go.
You got to redesign the glass. Retool everything.
I like to say that I'm hopeful but not optimistic.
Oh, God. I honestly, and I know, Stacey, maybe you missed it. No, I think you were here for it. I'm starting to get more and more dejected over the state of the world, but that might just be something that comes.
I think that's just
age.
the state of the world right now.
Maybe
I feel
it
like
is.
2020 really just threw us all to like.
I used to be an optimist, then happened.
Yeah.
It's a combination of
older.
that and getting older. Yeah,
Getting
thank
older.
you, Stacey.
I didn't want to be
older.
the old cranky old man yelling at the clouds. I always thought, I don't want to be
Me
that guy.
neither. I never wanted to be that back in my day, and now I find myself saying it all the time.
do it.
And the other one that's really classic, I find myself doing this. Hey, you see my glasses? Which my dad used to
I
do, and
can't
we all
find
thought
them.
was
Where are they?
hilarious.
And it's on your head.
They're right on my head,
Yep.
always.
Yep.
It cracks me up now.
Do you do that?
Yes, and it's kind of scary. And then I'm just like, my dad's probably looking down, going,
Yep.
What you say now, homie?
I visited my dad on Monday. I hadn't seen him in a while. He's 88. I visited him for his 88th birthday. And I wrote him a note saying, every day I see more and more of you in me. That's really true. As I get older, I go,
It's
I look
scary.
in the mirror, I go, Dad, what are you doing there? Scary.
I think someone from your audience sent me a mechanical. I'm not wired.
Somebody sent you a keyboard? Oh my
A tester,
God.
so I can
a
get
tester.
my keys.
Oh, those are great.
Oh,
Is that the
on the
cherry?
third
Is it-
row all the way to the right? I have those Gateron Browns. They're a nice combination.
I like the
on third
cherry
row all
MX
the way
Brown.
to the end.
Yeah. Wow, you
Yes,
really know
right
your
there.
tester.
That one.
This is the hard part. Like, which way do I do it? This way?
Oh, just look for anyone that's brown on the edge in 3. Because I just
Brown
saw
on the
it.
edge and 3. I don't have that option.
So this is are these Cherry MX switches?
No, this is a bunch of options.
Oh, it's not just
Yeah.
Cherry switches.
Cherries and other brand and other brand.
There's Alps. There's Cherry.
Gateron.
There's some people.
The Gaterons are definitely in there.
People used to say Cherry was
switches.
the best, but I think there's better ones now than Cherry, right? What do you like?
Cherry's kind of older, but my favorite thing about Gateron Browns is they have the feeling of blues, which all of us old DOS keyboard, Matthias keyboard people, they were kind of in that blue-red game. It has that same feeling, but not as noisy. And it's super funny that I have this on my desk because my project is to take this sucker apart and lube it, which will make it quiet.
Wait a minute. You shouldn't lube your keys. That sounds like a bad idea.
No, it's a lot of work. You got to take them
graphite?
apart. But
what are you lubricating it with?
There's what's the word? I can't say the word. It's a weird thing.
Okay.
I want to say diacrylic, but that might not be the right word.
Dimethicone?
The keyboard nerds. There you go.
Dimethicone. Wasn't that what was in the old contact cold remedy? Was dimethicone? Oh, that's simethicone.
No,
Dimethicone's in hair and makeup stuff to make it slippery on your skin and hair.
It's possibly it. I don't want the keyboard people to come after me, but I watch all of the keyboard people on YouTube now, and so I already got the keyboard puller. I got everything I need to take apart all these switches, and I just bought some purple switches, but they're a little smushy.
Doug M in our chat room says, "Man, hipster keyboards are as much work as a hipster beard."
Hey,
more expensive.
You need the comb, you need the wax, you need the special shampoo. I remember I was going to grow a beard, and this is very typical of me. Before I do something, I say, well, I got to get all the stuff so that I can do it. So I have beard comb, I have beard wax, I have all the beard stuff. And then Lisa said, you're not growing a beard. What are you talking about? So I have the stuff, but I don't have the beard.
I had pushback for like a month, and I was like, just let it go. We see what happens. I had pushback for like a month. This is like 2012.
And now she's okay with it?
Loves it. Okay. Loves it. Now it's just like, oh, this is the greatest thing. Don't take it off. I won't recognize it. It gets softer. Yeah. It's only stubbly for like a month or so, and then it's softer. But the number one thing, you can't wash with like regular people hair shampoo.
You have to use special beard shampoo. I have it all.
Because there's a big difference.
Sam, I don't think in Ypsilanti there's much of that going on.
Oh no, we have lots of hipsters around here. We have no shortage of that.
Oh, okay.
But this is also why, I just take a beard trimmer through my beard once a week or so.
That's all you do.
And I don't have to do any other maintenance.
Does Andrew have a beard, Stacey?
Quick through.
Oh, no.
No. You wouldn't tolerate that.
I think he's going to get his neck lasered. So
he never has to shave his neck again.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
He's
not. That makes him sound fancier than he is.
40 years.
Really? 40 years? You've had a beard for 40 years?
Almost.
Now you
almost
can't
40.
shave because no one knows what you look like.
Since I was 18, yeah.
If you shaved, people go, who the hell is that?
My wife wouldn't recognize me.
She would not recognize you.
She's never seen me without a beard.
So
except
my dad,
in a high school yearbook photo.
My dad had a mustache and a beard my entire life, and then he shaved his beard, and we were all like really weirded out. And then, like when I went away to college, I guess at one point in time he shaved his mustache, and we did recognize him. I'm pretty sure your family would recognize you, Sam, but they would be like,
"But I recognize you, but I don't like it.
What's going on here?
I know who you are, but I don't like you." How about the Pixel 6? This is an interesting story because I compare.
I want one.
Yeah, well, first of all,
so do I.
Me too.
It makes me want one. Yeah, but I compare it to what Apple does, which is nothing. We know pretty much there'll be an iPhone 13. It'll be next month, and we'll know basically it'll be thinner, faster, lighter, the best phone we've ever made. We know all that stuff, but Apple is, they literally. There was a guy in China who was sharing pictures of the prototypes that Apple sends to case manufacturers. Apple sent him a cease and desist, said, we're going to turn you into the Chinese government. You got to tell us where you got those. I mean, they're dead serious. You don't mess with them. So Google, which has a leak problem as well, has apparently taken the opposite point of view. If you're going to leak it, we better leak it first. So Google invited a number of journalists. I always call them tame journalists, people they know are going to be positive about it, in to sit down with Rick Osterloh, who's their hardware chief, and get a demo. They weren't allowed to record it. They weren't allowed to, do anything. They basically had to sit and listen to Rick, who's great. I like Rick. But it ended up being basically a puff piece for the Pixel 6, but they showed it. We now know what it looks like. In fact, there's even a page on the Google store of the Pixel 6, even though it won't be out till October. Is this a good strategy? Who's got the better strategy, Stacey, Apple or Google?
I feel like Google always accidentally leaks their own stuff.
Anyway.
So I'm like, you know what? Just they recognize they're not good at this. Let's just let them have it.
I think also it's a good way to gin up some excitement over a phone that has not been exciting for the last 2 years.
Yes,
You
that was
put a conversation space in there. I mean, not a conversation space. You put a placeholder in someone's brain because, yes, I had the benefit of being September 12th. So every year for my birthday, there's a new iPhone announced the day before. Like normally the day before or the day of. Somewhere, it starts at about the 10th, right? So depending on the calendar, I'm normally within a couple days. And then that's exactly what I get for myself every year. It's always 2 weeks later, whatever. But what they've done here for someone who's not in a tech space, is not going to buy two phones, they basically put a conversation holder. And it's like, I was really, really thinking about getting this car, but now I know this other car is coming. Or I was thinking about getting this phone, now I know this other phone is coming. And
we talked about this on Mac Break Weekly on Tuesday, and somebody in the chat room pointed out, Apple, if they pre-announce, will kill sales of their existing phone. Like that's
Correct.
and they're still selling the iPhone 12 like hotcakes. Google probably decided we can't get much worse than the sales of the Pixel 5. They got nothing to lose. They did, by the way, apparently they're going to announce a 5A in the next couple of weeks, which is bizarre.
Kind of bonkers. Well, you said it on Weekly. They don't have a strategy. Their strategy is no strategy.
What should we do? What should we do? They did announce a new chip. They were very cagey. They didn't really say what I think is the case, which is that Samsung is making this chip. It will be based on an Exynos, but have Tensor. They're going to call it the Google Tensor because there will be machine learning capability. Of course, TPUs, the Google Tensor units, are machine learning units that Google offers on the cloud, hence the naming.
Why do you think it's an Exynos?
Oh, that seems to be the consensus, is that, well, we know Samsung's going to make it. I think the consensus is they're just going to add some capabilities to an existing Samsung design, but we don't know.
Okay. Oh, well, it does say that they did their own SoC as opposed to their own application processor. Never mind. Okay. I was just curious because
see what I'm saying?
Okay, but
and Samsung's making it.
I see now where you're going.
So who's doing the CPU? Samsung, probably, right?
I mean, it's going to be something
It
that's
could still be a
ARM
Qualcomm.
instruction set based. And
I guess it could be.
Yeah.
Would Samsung make a chip that's got the Qualcomm? I guess it could. It doesn't.
sure,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
as long as Qualcomm's getting paid by Google,
they don't care.
For the design. Yeah.
Yeah, in Samsung, before their Exynos line had gotten all tweaked out, they actually did some of their phones with Exynos and some they just continued to use the Qualcomm.
U.S. phones always have Qualcomm because Qualcomm has the patents on the LTE and stuff, right? They need to use that
CDMA.
in the U.S., CDMA. And then in the rest of the world, they usually put Exynos in their own processor. But yeah, they continue to buy Qualcomms, but only in the U.S.
Now that the CDMA networks are being turned off,
yeah.
Do we even need that componentry in there?
What's Qualcomm going to do? Anyway.
They still have plenty of LTE patents and 5G patents.
Yeah, they've got other patents. Plus, they've broadened out into Wi-Fi and all these other
They make other stuff.
But,
what about the bump? So you all three just said, oh, I can't wait to get one. But Google's doubling down on the camera bump. They're making it the camera bump bar. It's going all the way across the phone.
I think it's a nice design decision around something that you have to deal with.
It solves that problem.
So, yeah. You know why I like it?
I loved my Nexus 6P.
Yeah.
And
so,
it had a bar.
Did it?
You know when we hold this, right? We have it in our hand, right?
Yeah.
You could actually use that as a thing. You know,
could rest the bar on your.
I'm gonna press on the bottom of the bump as I hold it in order to get.
I like that because then I won't put I always have my finger on the lens. I don't know why. Something about the way the phone naturally is held is my fingers right there. So having a bump might help with that, right? Yeah, put the finger.
And the DJ is me and just going crazy about what I could do with the bump bar. the bump.
It's going to have the bump will have cameras all the way along it. It looks like they're going to have three lenses, they said.
Are they all cameras or are some of them
back
other
when they
sensors?
did the Nexus
There's other
6P,
senses, sensors.
Yeah. When they did the 6P, we had, images that leaked out, months before, as you would expect. And, in those images, it looked like that bump actually stuck out a lot further than it actually did in reality.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, in this case here, I think it is still pretty prominent, but, it had a bar that went across the entire, it was at the top of the phone, not partway down, but, it still effectively had a bar all the way, and it was fine. I had no issues with it, and that was the first
a bar's
Google
better
phone
than a
that I
bump.
had.
I
Before
agree.
that, I had other brands. Yeah.
Well, when you go to
How
lay
do
it
people
flat
have
on
pop
stuff,
sockets?
the bump just makes
Right.
it rock, whereas the bar will not cause as much rocking.
It looks like
which drives
that.
me insane.
And you're right. People put I don't, but there are people, many of them. She's got a pop socket. So
I'm just saying that it's, the bump is not going to interfere with the pop socket.
it stops me from wireless charging. It doesn't slide into my pocket right. I never have understood the pop
Actually, I
socket.
think the bump is going to help you with wireless charging, Stacey, because again, now your index finger will have a nice little
know right where to go.
guideway
Helps you
between
locate where
the
to put it.
bump and the socket. Yeah.
They'll have to make a new cradle that's a little shorter to go under the bump. Otherwise, it'd be tilted. I don't know.
So mine's a 3A, so I don't actually have wireless charging. I'm waiting for this phone.
Yes. This is the phone y'all are waiting for. Actually, I'm waiting
I have
for
a
it
5.
too. Yeah, I bought the 4XL, and I didn't buy the 5 because it didn't seem like much of an upgrade from that.
A lot of people complained. A lot of reviewers complained about the 765 Snapdragon in the 5. I have
that's
not
fine.
had an issue with it. It's got
fine.
plenty of performance. The only issue with it is when it's doing the image processing after you take a photo, it takes a little bit longer to process the HDR. But I'm doing other stuff anyway. I'm not immediately looking at every image anyway, so it doesn't matter.
The new Tensor system on a chip will have massive improvements in AI. Rick Osterloh. I almost hate to repeat the complete marketing BS, but I guess I will. That Tensor unlocks the ability to run data center level AI models locally on the chip without connecting to the cloud. And he did do a demo.
What does that even mean?
That's BS.
I have no idea.
It's marketing schmutz.
Talk to me when you can do
It's
data
fully
center
buzzword
level
compliant.
training on the phone.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what like. I'm like, data center. I mean,
What does that
inference,
even mean?
you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
Your only limit is the number of models you can run. I mean, you can't.
And the size of
Over
your
car.
storage, because you
And
got
your battery, I guess.
yeah. So
But,
they did demonstrate to
for
Gizmo.
what it's worth. I was just gonna say, for what it's worth, the TPUs, have been used in data centers for a long time.
Sure.
And actually, Google's not the only one that uses TPUs. NVIDIA builds TPUs into a lot of their SoCs as well. So they're very highly regarded for doing that type of the matrix math processing that's required for processing neural networks.
Well, that's interesting. I thought
so. I think it's a good thing to put in there.
I thought Google owned Tensor Processing Unit. It's a generic word.
Well, I think they developed it,
Okay.
but
Yeah, they
I think that
designed
they
it.
license it to
Oh, okay.
NVIDIA and others.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's the
kind
Google
of like
design
ARM,
on it,
ARM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TensorFlow or whatever the heck they call
TensorFlow.
it.
Yeah,
They like to have their own little special words.
yes, Tensor.
Well, no, TensorFlow is a
Yeah. Well,
specific
TensorFlow,
framework,
I think,
isn't it?
is
Yeah,
the
that's their
framework.
software.
So is TPU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, but
Well, TPU
is the
Tensor
processor.
Processing Unit is the
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to
And then it's
sidetrack it. It's just how I
optimized to run
remember
the
that
TensorFlow
Google
software.
did it.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's like the neural engine in the Apple A series,
Apple stuff, correct.
or Qualcomm's got their own AI cores, so it's an AI optimized processing core.
So one of the groups that got to go in with Rick Osterloh, Sam Rutherford from Gizmodo, and he did get a demo of the Tensor chip that I thought, okay, that's a good selling point. Rick played a video of somebody giving a presentation in French. Now, in the past, Google still has live captioning, right? So you could watch that video and it would live caption it, but it would live caption it in French. Now, you can not only run live caption, but you can also put it in interpreter mode, and the thing can translate in real time while it's putting a caption up on a video. And apparently did quite well, and that's kind of amazing. That's a reason to get that, I think. There's also a new voice dictation feature in the Google keyboard, Gboard, that lets you speak instead of type while texting. Well, we've always had that. But the Pixel 6 can correct mistakes in real time. I think that's always been there, but maybe that's something they showed off. I guess maybe something they're going to do better. Anyway, so you think this was a good strategy on Google's part because it's got you to pause instead of buying. Here's the thing: Google is going to sell a 5A all of a sudden. They've announced it. August 26th is the rumor. $450. So maybe there is a phone for them to kill.
Well, except apparently the 5A is running a Snapdragon 765, which is the same thing that's in the 4A 5G and the 5. So what is the difference between the 4A 5G and the 5A?
Always the problem I've had with, I guess, the price is the biggest difference, yeah?
4A 5G is what, $499?
Yeah, this is $450.
Okay, so 50 bucks cheaper.
Well, hey, you know what? I think we've come to the conclusion in this segment. Google is just confused as hell.
Maybe their phone strategy is just optimized for something else that we can't fathom.
So we don't see. That we don't know.
They're doing that. What is that multi-level chess thing? Or they're doing like twin speak where the twins understand each other? Yeah.
It's 4D chess.
And Andy mentioned that he just wanted Apple to tell us because, we're not children and it's not Christmas anymore. Andy, I love you, but I'm going to fight you on that because I actually missed the days of not knowing when something was coming and then waking up to this fantastic news and everyone's, all
I bet you like
waiting
in line for stuff too.
No, I don't. I can't stand that. No, I'm not a line waiter. I pre-ordered.
I kind of miss that. The Apple lines were always fun. You'd meet interesting people.
They're fun. Yeah, but not just standing, not doing nothing. The Apple lines were fun because you can do stuff. And when that was a thing, I was working at Apple, so I got to go up and down the line and hand out water and brownies and, make people laugh because nobody thought they were going to get anything. And so we were always cool because we would order like, hey, the Starbucks is there. Can you guys bring over 300 iced teas? And they're like, what? And I'm going, yeah, we're not joking. Nice. 300 iced teas and clean out the pastry cabinet. Just bring that and a couple those things of coffee. And we just have Starbucks feed like the whole line. And every so shock and awe, right? That was our thing during the John Ronson years was shock and awe.
Do you remember, wasn't it you, John, that we camped out at the Apple store? God, that must have been for the 4 or something. I mean, it was a long time ago. We went there the night before. You'd kind of camped out in Santa Rosa on a recliner. That was the last time I think we waited in line.
The recliner?
The recliner. Hey, you got to be comfortable, right?
Yeah, I think the last line was 4S. If I remember correctly, the
4S?
last line was 4S. Everything after that, we've been on order it ahead of time, get it at home kind of thing.
It is impressive because Apple solved that problem where companies like NVIDIA and Intel and AMD and others are still suffering and unable to make these devices. Although Tim Cook did warn in the analyst call last week that the chip shortages for the legacy nodes, the non-Apple custom chips, might in fact cause a short supply for some of these new iPhones when they come out. So that might happen. Sam, is the chip shortage easing up? I know you cover this.
No, not yet.
No, because it hits automotive as well. A lot of automotive.
It's hitting a lot of industries.
Yeah,
I mean, here in Southeast Michigan, we've got storage lots full of tens of thousands of vehicles that are waiting, that are basically built, just waiting to add one more ECU in there or two more ECUs, because they're missing some chips. And as with Apple, it's oftentimes it's those legacy components. In an ECU, you'll have a microcontroller in there, and you might have 3, 4, 5 other chips on that board, that are often, older style components that could be anywhere from 28 to 90 nanometers. So they're old parts that are still being used. And that's often what is missing from a lot of these vehicles.
Let me take a little break. We have more with our fabulous panel. Sam Abul-Samad, our car guy, Stacey Higginbotham, my IoT guy, and Doc Rock, my rock and roll guy. I don't know. My purple guy, my eCam guy. Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. There are hiring guys, according to Forbes, gyms, nail salons, mom and pop stores, and more set to go on epic hiring sprees in the coming months because there's pent-up demand for all these services. I know I walk down the street in Petaluma, every single restaurant has a sign in the window saying, help wanted, help wanted. I'm excited about getting to go back to the movies or go back to the gym or maybe go out to eat. Well, there are millions of jobs that'll have to be filled first. So where do these businesses turn to fill these roles fast? I got to tell you, putting the sign in the window, probably not the best method. What about ZipRecruiter? Right now, you could try ZipRecruiter free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. One post on ZipRecruiter casts the widest possible net. Posts your job listing on 100+ job sites, job boards, so you're going to get out to the largest number of people. And by the way, including social networks, the most people will see it. But don't worry, you're not going to get flooded with applications coming into your inbox or into your phone calling you at home. They all go into the ZipRecruiter interface, which is great because that means ZipRecruiter do some very cool things. First of all, ZipRecruiter's matching technology will scan resumes across its network of millions of job seekers. And if there's a match, if that candidate fits your open role, they'll actually proactively invite them to apply for your job. That's pretty cool. And the interface means not only do you not get the phone calls or the emails, it's very easy to review all the applicants. They pre-format the resumes. I know this from firsthand experience. We use ZipRecruiter all the time. They pre-format the resumes, makes it easy to read. You probably have some, absolute musts. You can pre-screen candidates with yes/no questions, multiple choice, even essay questions, so you can eliminate people who just don't fit your needs exactly. You can easily review recommended candidates from ZipRecruiter, invite your top choices to apply for your job. That encourages them to apply faster. According to ZipRecruiter's internal data, jobs where employers invite candidates to apply get 2.5 times more candidates. And that's good for you. The more choices you have, the better you'll be able to pick the exact right person. ZipRecruiter's technology is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. I have to say, for us, we've done this several times now. I can remember Lisa posting at breakfast, and within an hour or two, we get, I love it because she goes, oh, this person's great. Oh, this person's great. We get great candidates within the first few hours. Before lunch. Right now, you could try ZipRecruiter for free. We have a very special offer for you at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. Please use that address. I want them to know you heard it here. ZipRecruiter.com/TWIT. Help yourself out. Make hiring a pleasure, not a pain. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. ZipRecruiter is, and I can vouch for it, the smartest way to hire. Let's see. Well, I got some more Google stories as long as we're in the Google verse. All the things you missed, Stacey, on This Week in Google. Actually, I take it back. We never talk about Google on This Week in Google.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about, man?
We never talk about them. Did you get your $2.15 check? The Google, the Google Plus class action. So remember, there was a privacy breach. The Google exposed the private data of 52 million users in 2018. They got sued. It was a class action suit. Actually, you were on the show at the time. I remember we talked about this. There was this first small breach of like 100,000. And then all of a sudden, there was this huge breach of millions. And since nobody's been working on Google Plus anyway, Google's fix for it was just to shut the whole thing down. Okay, that's fine. That's it. It's over. The class action suit Matt Maddock and Zach Harris versus Google filed October 2018, blamed Google's lax approach to data security. The case settled in June of last year. Google agreed to pay out $7.5 million. Now it's time for math. Here's your math problem. Take out half that money, $3.25 million, for legal fees. You know, the lawyers are the ones who get rich on these. 1.7 million people filled out the right forms by October 2020. So you divide the $3.25 million by 1.7 million, and you get a whopping $2.50 per person. Congratulations. You're a winner.
I know we make fun of this, but you do have to have some incentive to get people to file class action suits, right? Because otherwise, why the heck would you do it?
Yep.
And they can be a deterrent to the type of things like arbitration or lackluster approaches towards privacy. All of these things, like this, will help deter it. I mean, I don't love them. I'm just like, we always mock it, but
I got a bag of pop chips once. That was cool. Honestly, I get these checks every once in a while. I don't even cash them. It's like $2, really? Okay.
It's not worth the hassle.
It's not worth the hassle.
Okay, there's no hassle to cashing checks, y'all. You just take a picture of it, you sign it, you take a picture, and it goes to your bank account.
Like,
it's not like you have to drive to the bank anymore.
So if you see a penny
my
on the
charges 50 cents for doing a mobile deposit.
Oh, that's even you got to get it. First of all,
bank.
You need to get a better bank because that sucks. But if you were walking down the street, Stacey, and you saw a penny on the ground, would you reach down to pick it up?
Not a penny, but if I saw a quarter, I 100% would.
Not a nickel? Would you reach out for a nickel?
Oh, so hard to say.
A dime?
Maybe.
You think a quarter,
you know what,
though?
I have been really lucky. I have found like $100 bill in the ground.
There you go. I'd reach down to pick that up.
I gave it to the restaurant where I found it, and I was like, hey, we found this. But I find money on the street all the time, and usually it's like in places where I think I know where it belongs, so I give it back to people. But every now and then.
Lisa and I were at the grocery store. She went in, and I parked. I got out of the car, and there on the ground was a packet with a bank. Those packets that they put the money in, and I opened it up, and there was like $400 in there. And I thought, I'm rich. And I ran in to tell Lisa. She said, oh, thank you for finding that. That's mine. And she took it. She said, that must have dropped out of my purse. To this day, I don't know if she was telling the truth. But anyway.
Just to tell her, prove it.
Yeah, prove it. What are the serial numbers?
That's funny.
It's been ages since I found any cash because who carries cash?
Who carries cash?
I definitely
carry
don't.
cash.
I got caught out the other day, and I was like, man, I just realized I haven't had cash in my wallet for like 9 months. It was so weird.
The other day we were going to the farmer's market, and my wife asked if I had any cash, and I was looking around, managed to find like $12.
Yeah, I have this big jar with pennies in it. When we were in Hawaii, actually, that really sealed the deal with the Apple Watch because, Hawaii was under some pretty strict still COVID regulations when we were there. We had to show, that we were vaccinated and everything. And you go into restaurants and stuff. And whenever I paid, there were people who wouldn't accept cash, but everybody took Apple Pay or touchless payments. And Apple
Pay got good here.
Man, ABC stores, baby, just everything. It was almost like I didn't even pay for anything. I just go in, take stuff, get my spam, what is it called? Musubi. I get my spam musubi, tap to pay. I'm out of here, man.
Oh, man. See, you had only the ones you buy from the store. The next time you come here, I'll have Karen's mom make you some. No, I'll have Karen's mom make some for you, and I guarantee you'll be looking for a house because they're good.
I'll tell you, even the ABC store, and the reason I bought it is the guy was stocking it, so it had just arrived. So even the ABC store.
It's the perfect hand food to just have around. And if you're going to go somewhere and be out all day and you don't know if you're going to get to eat, just keep it in your backpack. I keep them in my camera bag.
Yeah.
And then if you get stuck, you're good. If not, then
You won't
save
starve.
it for the next day.
Yeah. What is it? It's spam. It's a thin layer of spam on top of a big glob of rice wrapped in seaweed.
Right, and then nori, yes, or seaweed.
Nori, yeah.
And then you can get them with, if you're not a spam person, you can get it with chicken. Some people make it with little hot dogs, you know, so there's all different types of stuff. And we actually stuff miso pork in the middle and just wrap the whole thing. So there's no actual meat on the outside. The miso pork is stuffed in the middle, and then she wraps it in the ball, then you put the wrap
That's
around.
onigiri.
Yeah.
Onigiri.
That's my favorite snack food.
Yeah.
Onigiri.
So musubi and onigiri are basically the same thing, but not really. Yeah, I mean, very similar.
Karen's
Hawaii just adjusted it.
On, man. I'm coming back. I missed out. Damn.
Yes, onigiri is life. Like when I was going to college in Japan, that was life. You never leave anywhere without one because you just don't know when you might get stuck and you can't eat. You just reach in your backpack and boom, hand food. Let's go.
I used to bring them, and they're cheap and delicious.
Do you speak Japanese, Doc Rock?
大体日本語もできますけど、そうですよ。もう本当にペラペラなんだけども。
I think he's being self-deprecating, saying just a little, not that well, but you sure sounded like you spoke it to me.
That's what you call Japanese culture. You have to do that. You got to self-deprecate first, and then moonwalk right over.
Yeah, I don't speak Japanese very well, but now you got me.
I only knew one phrase in Japanese when I went to Japan, and it was sumimasen.
Nintendo.
No. What was it?
Sumimasen?
What does sumimasen mean?
Excuse me. Excuse me.
It came in so handy.
Yeah. Sumimasen.
And you did it well because most people don't say it correctly, and you actually said it very well. So pickups to you, Stacey.
Thank you. Hold on, let's see.
Give that woman an onigiri.
Onegai oshimasu?
Onegai itashimasu is extremely... No, onegai itashimasu is extremely like formal, but if you just want omizu onegai shimasu, that's when you want a cup of water.
Omizu onegai shimasu. That's what it was, yes.
Yes.
Because I always had to ask for more water in Japan. Tiny little cups.
Yeah, because the cups are so small.
Throw in a deep bow, to show your respect and,
We're taking this show on the road.
I was very apologetic.
We're going to Japan, and you guys are going to be on it with me.
Oh, it's on. Sure. It's on. Let's go.
I'd love to
quit Japan. It's happening.
I would love to go back to Japan. I haven't been there in 11 years. So
I've only been a couple of times, but I loved it. Yeah, your daughter would probably enjoy it, wouldn't she?
Sam, my friends live in Toyota Town, and they have a lot of people connected in the factory in IT. So, if you ever go, I can introduce you to some Toyota folks.
Yeah, well, I've got lots of contacts at all the automakers over there, and I work with them on a regular basis. So it's I love the opportunity to go over there. The food is so good.
Oh, I love it.
So the minute you hear about electric Tacoma, please email me so I can start digging in the couch.
Toyota's real slow on the electric vehicles, aren't they? What happened?
Well, they're first, but they're slow. I mean, the Prius, and then that's not the same.
That was it. Yeah.
Well, they're big on hybrids. They sell a lot of hybrids, but they've been promoting hydrogen fuel cells, but they have never been big on battery electrics. They didn't, they're in many ways a very conservative company, and they didn't trust the battery technology, and so
they might be right after hearing about fires with the Chevy Bolts and Teslas and.
But they are launching a series of new battery EVs starting next year. Oh. Their first one is a crossover called the BZ4X, which we've all begged them to change the name before it goes on sale.
BZ. Terrible name. What apparently this week President Biden signed, I don't know what force of power it has, an executive order saying
none.
It's zero. But it was kind of saying, putting a flag in the sand saying we want 50% of all vehicles sold in the U.S. by, was it 2030 to be electric?
Yeah, it's target of 50%, 40 to 50% of all new vehicle sales to be plug-in vehicles. So battery electric and plug-in hybrids. And the reality is most of those are going to be battery electric.
Do you think that's a reasonable goal? It seems like, I know a lot of countries are saying 100%.
Yeah, well, the industry is moving in the direction, to be ready to do that. They're launching a whole bunch of new EVs over the next several years. They're converting plants that have been building gasoline cars for decades to building EVs, and building battery plants, which is the other piece of this, because if you're going to build EVs, you got to have batteries. And so they're investing billions of dollars in new plants to build giant lithium-ion batteries. So their product planning is all on, assuming that they're targeting getting to that 50% or more threshold by 2030. But that's to do that, to make that a realistic proposition. They need some help, like on charging infrastructure, for example. We need a lot more chargers if we're going to have that many EVs on the road, and some extra purchase incentives for consumers to make it more affordable, because they are still the price gap is closing, but EVs are still more costly to purchase than gasoline vehicles at this point.
The New York Times says this is good for Tesla, bad for Toyota and other companies that are not yet on the EV bandwagon. Does that sound right? Tesla's, of course, all electric, all battery. Yeah,
Tesla's all EV. A lot of other companies are moving in that direction. GM has said they want to be all EV by the early 2030s. Ford is planning to go mostly electric by that time frame. Stellantis, Volkswagen. The Japanese automakers, oddly enough, are the ones that are kind of the biggest laggards in this, particularly Toyota.
Yeah.
One thing
they say that's why Biden included plug-in hybrids as in that goal, because as a way to appease Toyota.
Yeah, Toyota and some of the other automakers that are also selling plug-in hybrids. Yeah, but Toyota in particular, because they sell so many hybrids, such a big percentage of their sales now are hybrids. Especially some of their most popular cars, like the Toyota RAV4. A quarter of those in the U.S. now are hybrids, and in Europe, over half of RAV4 sales are hybrids now. It outsells the Prius. The Prius is on its way out. Nobody's buying Priuses anymore. People are buying RAV4 hybrids instead.
Interesting.
Because RAV4 has a little bit more style, a little bit more functionality, and a little bit normality.
Yeah, more room. It's bigger.
And here's the crazy thing: like having the i3 and then having an electric 5 Series. I prefer the i3 better, even though the 5 is way more comfortable, doper ride, like the whole 9 yards. It's just the idea of like, I might actually have to go to the gas station at some point. And that drives me crazy because I would rather never go.
Well, and I'm sure, especially for you, living in Honolulu, the traffic is really bad. The i3, it's got a nice small physical footprint. It doesn't take up much space on the road. It's going to be easier to park, easier to maneuver around in traffic.
Oh, it was epic.
It's a cool little car. It's kind of weird looking to a lot of people.
It was funky to drive.
I like the i3.
It is weird looking. Lisa was in the market for an electric vehicle because Michael finally got his driver's license and is taking the Bolt. And she looked at the i3. She said, I'm not gonna buy that. It's too funny. So what did she buy? She bought a Mini Cooper, which is basically an i3 with switches. But
well, it's
cuter.
It's got the i3 hardware in there, but in a cooler looking body.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I say, it's almost the same car. It just has a body kit. Yeah. Well, you know what the funny thing about it is, as funny looking and as ugly as that car was, I get more when I was driving that thing around. I got more compliments out of that car than I get out of a gorgeous electric 5 Series. Why? Number one, the circus bear mentality. 6 foot 250 dude climbs out of that thing, and they're like, "You fit in there?" And I mean, I fit. I got mad space in here because it's extremely spacious. It's freakishly spacious when you figure how small it is, right?
Yeah,
so it was. So it was one of those things that everybody, I think they were more freaked out that how the heck did this middle linebacker get out of that little car?
Oh my!
But I
actually
it was a great car.
Insist on sitting in the Mini before she bought it because I want to make sure I could get into it. It's pretty comfortable. I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a lot of fun to drive. Not a lot of battery, but we don't go anywhere. So.
Well, I mean, when you need to go long distances, you take the Mustang Mach-E or the Bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask Sam a question?
Yes.
Since he's here and he's an expert.
I'm like, that's right. That's why I was trying to sneak in my Toyota question.
I will open it up to everyone, including the chat room. But in like 6 months, I'm going to have to be giving up my car to my daughter, which means I get a new car.
You're in the same boat we are.
Tesla.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a Tesla, one of the old original like
Model
2013, 2012 Model S.
Yeah.
I love that car and I hate that car because I love its I love driving it. I want all electric, but it's too freaking big for me. I hate how big it is. So I would like a small, fun, all-electric vehicle. Go.
I would definitely take a look at the Volkswagen ID4.
Yeah, you drove that last week.
Miles of range.
Yeah.
It's definitely much more compact, but it's still roomy inside. Depending on what your timing is, early in the year, Nissan's going to launch the Aria, their own compact crossover. Depending on your budget, you might also want to look at the Polestar 2. It's quite a bit smaller than the Model S. It's really good to drive. It's quick. The Volvo XC40 Recharge, that's another battery EV. So there's a whole bunch of them that are coming to market. And of course, if you decide that maybe going small is not what you want to do, you can also get a Hummer EV.
I asked Lisa
Gross.
if she'd get that. In fact, I actually tried to talk her into a Porsche Taycan. But
I was going to say Taycan. That would have been my answer.
Yeah, everybody seems to love that car. Here's a picture of
I thought about
Lisa
that.
in her new Aston Cooper Mini.
There you go.
Yeah, she's really rocking out in that Mini. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Audi Q4 e-tron's another one to take a look at. It's based on the same platform, same hardware as the VW ID4, but it's a little more stylish. If you want something that looks a little more premium. So lots of choices.
I hear
You thinking
Stacey
I'm
taking
fancy?
notes.
I like it. I am. I'm taking notes. I'm like, yes. Okay.
This is good. This is exciting.
No, I wanted the e-tron when they had the wagon version before they came out with the SUV version, and then it disappeared. I think it was the A3 e-tron. It was like a blue wagon.
Yeah, that was a plug-in hybrid. So that's based on the Golf. I don't know how I forgot this. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 is also coming out this fall, which is another one that's going to be really interesting because it's going to have it's going to have 350 kilowatt charging capability, so you can charge it from 10 to 80% in about 18 minutes.
Ooh.
So, Stacey, you're on an island. Do you drive off the island, or is this just for getting around?
I take my Tesla into the mountains. It's the best car.
Oh, okay. And you have a charger at home, obviously.
I have a charger at home, and then there's actually chargers like all along the Olympic Peninsula.
Oh, yeah.
I love that car.
Yeah. You get the supercharger network. Sam and I were talking about it on the radio show this week because he was driving a Mustang Mach-E up in the wilds of Michigan and found it a little hard to find those Electrify America chargers. That's going to be the trick. Does the Biden executive order do anything about beefing up our electric charging network?
Yeah, I mean, it talks about, adding more EV chargers, building out the charging infrastructure, adding, they want to add 500,000 public charging stations, which is great, except that you can't do that through an executive order. That's a lot of what was in the executive order is basically saying
suggestions.
Congress,
you should do something about
help me out here. We need to do something.
Yeah.
Because Congress has got to give some money first in order for them to do it.
Yeah.
I wish more. I mean this in the nicest way. I'm just thinking of an easy word to say. I wish more fossil heads would get their head around that electric vehicles will be very helpful. And everyone goes, well, it costs more to do this. So there's these weird, mythical arguments of which costs more to run and which costs less to run. One of the things I know living on an island with the way our weather works, it's just the general wear and tear of driving from a combustion engine vehicle. The stuff that drips onto the ground causes the asphalt not to really stick and pop out. So, Leo, you were just here. Our government spends every single day patching like 3,000 potholes, and they come back a month and a half later, right back out again.
I saw them doing that.
So that's one of the things that EVs will do better is because you're not dropping like caustic things onto the ground, and so the infrastructure will actually save more.
Oh, that's interesting.
And yes, batteries are environmentally think. Go ahead, sorry, because I will get upset because they don't understand that your gas thing is not just the gas and whatever
Oh, sure.
using the batteries are worse. That stuff dripping on the ground is extremely caustic. It just is.
Or when you pick up your kids from school and you're idling because you're waiting for your kids, you're not poisoning all their little lungs.
Right.
And driving EVs, because they've got that instant torque, the way they take off is fantastic. It feels so good.
Oh yeah, once you go electric, you never go back. It's really
I never want to go.
I do miss the noise, of a great engine. but you know,
I'm so deaf.
I can learn to live with that.
The Mustang has a switch to play recorded engine noise into the cabin, and I can't hear it. I don't know what's going on. I switch it.
The IA does that too, right?
Yeah.
It has the fake noise, and I'm like,
Sam, can you hear it when you turn on the propulsion noise? I don't hear any noise at all.
It's not, it's not as loud as what you get with a V8 Mustang.
It doesn't sound like my Mustang.
It is a lot more subtle.
Okay.
But and it's something that, it's not just recorded engine noise. It's a synthetic sound.
Yeah.
That is trying to evoke the feeling of,
I just turn it
driving
off.
a Mustang.
I don't need that. I like it.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's still pretty subtle.
You can hire Michael Winslow to ride in the back seat and make the noise for you.
The truth is, and I know this because traffic is a nightmare in Oahu, which shocked me. The real problem is not electric or gas. The real problem is private ownership of cars. I don't know if we're ever going to solve that problem.
No, we're not. Because in a way, here, this is exactly what it is here. We happen to be a place, it's sort of a high immigrant population, right? Because of the way the island was, controversially.
It's a very diverse island. Yeah.
Right. It was controversially taken away. Many of the cultures got here in order to help run factories for dole and farms for dole.
Right. Plantations.
And so when you came from some place where people didn't have things, you get here, your first generation, you want to provide your kids things better than the next.
Right.
And so that everybody does, right? But it's amplified here because of the whole American dream stories, whatever. I come from a place where I was walking, catching trains, or maybe even still riding a four-legged vehicle, and now I get to own a car. When my kids are old, I'm going to get them a car right away. So you have a large family, you got 5 or 6 kids, and every kid gets a car. So it gets crazy really quickly.
You can't keep doing that. You can't keep doing that.
You got to get your kids scooters.
But nobody wants to sacrifice. I understand.
Oh, my goodness. I'm looking at a scooter that has a dumb name. It's called Scooter Tron something. Scooter McScooterson or something crazy like that. Well, it's a dumb name, but I want one.
I was in Traverse City for a conference this week, and an old friend of mine who's working with this UK company called Zap Scooters. They introduced their first electric scooter. It's going on sale. They're going to start deliveries in Paris later this month. And it's a really cool looking scooter. It's got about a 40-mile range. It'll go, I think it'll go up to about 50 miles an hour. But it's got removable batteries, so you can take the batteries out, take them inside and charge them up. You can get spare batteries, just like you used to do with your Samsung phones, Leo. You can get spare batteries and stick them in there. And it's actually in the rundown here, the Zap scooter, it's designed as a more premium scooter, and it's a really cool looking design. And I think it's definitely that's the sort of thing that, especially in cities, especially in crowded cities, I think we need to get more people adopting micromobility solutions, whether it's e-bikes or
I agree.
Scooters or other small vehicles like that.
Apparently, it is Scooter McScooterson.
I'm not joking, man. It's called Rolley. The one that I saw is called the Rolley. It stands up by itself. It's got a gigantic fat wheel.
Oh, no.
And
I've seen the Rolley.
The Rolley.
I've never cared about this until I went to San Diego a couple months before the situation, as I call it. And I ripped around San Diego for like a week and a half with just Lime scooters. And I was like, I want this life. This is so cool.
This is the Rolley Scooterson, the intelligent scooter. Oh, I want that. It's so cute.
And get off. It stands up by itself.
What? Is it like a Segway?
Self-balancing?
Oh.
Yeah, self-balancing.
Oh, that's neat. Wow. So it's like a little Segway scooter. How much are those?
I don't know yet.
Too much.
I'm trying to find out.
I love my e-bike. I stopped riding it because somebody got creamed on his bike on the bridge that I would cross to get here every day. And I feel like it's not safe anymore. So that's why I still drive a car.
That's another reason why Sam was right. If more people would do the micro-mobility.
Yeah,
so you
that'd be safer.
This is a great conversation, Leo, because you've just been here. There's a lot of driving for things that are under a mile, and it drives me insane because I lived in Japan where you don't get in a car unless it's over 2 miles.
They have great mass transit.
2 mile is the threshold. But there's a lot of places where you're just going to the store is less than a mile away, but nobody will walk, everybody will drive. And that's what makes it crowded. It's the short trips that are obnoxious. Going to work and from work, we get that, but it's the everyday little short trips. And so Biki, which is those little mint green bikes you saw, has helped out a lot, but mostly the tourists ride them because they come from places that had bikes. So we're still trying to get it out of the head that I need my own car. And of course you saw the gigantic 2003 Toyotas that are like lifted this high off the ground.
Yeah.
They look brand new, but it's just obnoxious for an island. Like, where are you going with that?
So the Rolleys are between $3,000 and $3,500.
Yeah, it's on.
They come in orange.
Oh yeah, there you go. You like orange, or you
Orange is my
prefer
color,
cyan, yellow, red, white, or carbon fiber? I might get orange. That'd be more visible. It might be more visible.
The Zap Scooters on line 60 in the rundown, if you're interested.
I'm looking at it. It's beautiful.
Okay.
But will it make it here, Sam?
Yeah, it will be coming here next year. So they're rolling it out city by city.
Maybe
pretty,
I don't
right?
need a car because if we had 2 cars,
There
and a
you
scooter,
go.
my daughter
Got
could
her,
drive
Sam.
because
There you go. We have ended private ownership of vehicles on this show, ladies and gentlemen.
no, I would
amazing.
privately own 3 vehicles in this case.
But one of them would be a Zapp urban mobility vehicle.
and
that's
the other's
cool.
electric, but still.
That's cool. Well, this is electric too, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, this is the one I was talking about. The batteries are removable. And a lot of the scooter companies, especially in Asia now, are doing removable batteries. And there's a company called Gogoro that is setting up battery swap stations.
We're having a Stacey attack. What happened,
Are you
Stacey?
familiar with Gogoro?
Prices?
Oh yeah.
So high?
Yeah, so high. So high.
Well, you can get a $2,500 tax credit on this one.
On the
But
Zap or on the Roller Row go below?
On the Zap. So this one's this
That
is their
was
premium model.
$9,000, y'all, or $7,500 for the regular.
But you get but how much is the
You get $2,500 off of that. But think about what just a regular e-bike costs these days. I mean, you're
They're
spending
$6,000.
$3,000-4,000 for
Well,
an
Yeah,
e-bike.
yeah.
The new Trek that I was looking at was $6,000. Yeah, for a Trek roadway, something like that. But yeah,
Okay, that's a fancy bike.
That's a Trek, baby.
made in America. Well,
I
not
know,
really.
but that's a fancy bike.
Parts of it are made in America.
Yeah, the logo.
Let's take a little break so we can help Stacey pay for her Zap i300. Our show today brought to you by Udacity. I know a lot of you love technology. That's why you listen to our shows. I do too. That's why when Udacity was launched in 2011, 10 years ago, they're just celebrating their 10th anniversary, I was really excited. It was started by a Googler who noted that a lot of the people who were applying for jobs at Google, even though they came out of prestigious universities and got fancy degrees in technology and computer science, didn't have the real skills that they needed to work at Google. So he started Udacity. He said, we're going to do, and the very first thing Udacity did was the nano degree. We're going to go to companies and say, what are the skills people need to get jobs at your company? Udacity is a unique part-time online education program geared for people like you looking to take your technology to the next level. They offer the latest cutting-edge nano degree programs, which you can't get anywhere else. Things like AI, deep learning, flying car and autonomous flight engineer, intro to self-driving cars, machine learning engineer, robotics software engineer. And they design these courses by partnering with industry leaders, Microsoft, Google, IBM, AWS, and more. In fact, team leads at these top companies are often your instructor, people who are passionate, who understand the skills you'll need to work with them. If you love learning and you want to get a job in tech, Udacity is for you. Even if, I mean, honestly, I take their courses just because I love this stuff, and it's a great way to learn. Udacity can help you master the latest tech skills and techniques. Of course, they've got the videos that you can watch the lectures on your own time at your convenience. But more importantly, and I really appreciate this, they focus on active learning. You actually, their courses are project-based. You actually have to implement the things you've learned, and that makes a huge difference in your understanding. You've got to test your knowledge. You've got to do these projects. Now, you're not doing them alone. Homework and projects are reviewed by qualified professionals. You'll have real human feedback and code reviews. So you really kind of get used to the kind of environment that you'll be working in big tech. And, of course, you have access to mentors 24/7. So, yes, you're going to have – I tell you, it's hard. You're going to have points where you go, what do I do? I don't know how this works. How do I do it? You ask a mentor. It's really a successful way to do this. And you can do this in your own time in as little as 5 or 10 hours a week. You work at your own pace any time of the day or night. There are mentors available all day and all night, 24/7, because they're global. And you can graduate in as little as 3 months. You might have a better job before next year. Wouldn't that be awesome? And maybe it's a good thing, because according to the World Economic Forum, 75 million jobs are going to be replaced by automation in the next 3 years. That could very well be yours. Prepare for the future with Udacity. Over 14 million people in over 240 countries now use Udacity. You can see the course listings at udacity.com. My suggestion is look at them and pick something that gets you excited. Don't pick something because you say, oh, I have to do this or I should do this. Pick something that you say, I want to be an autonomous flight engineer. I want to learn this. Because I tell you what, that passion is going to drive you through the learning. You're going to be better at it. And when you get that job, you're going to be happy. Wouldn't you like to be happy in your job? Wouldn't that be nice? Once you enroll as a student in specific course offerings, you're going to view the online course. You're going to complete a series of projects and support courses. They have free courses, yes. They also offer flexible payment options so you can learn at your own pace and schedule. And by the way, if you're a business, you should check out Udacity for Enterprise. If you've got a team that needs to master cutting-edge technologies, nowadays, we really want our IT teams to be experts in cybersecurity for sure, or AI or data science. With Udacity for Enterprise, you can upskill your entire workforce with real-world project-based learning. Be sure to check out the Enterprise section of Udacity's website today. Get the in-demand tech skills you need to advance your career. Visit Udacity, Udacity, udacity.com/twit. By the way, we got a really good deal for you. I'm really thrilled to be able to tell you about this. Use the offer code TWIT75, 75% off any program. Do not wait. This is going to be a limited time offer. I'm thrilled we can offer this to you. Udacity.com/twit. The offer code TWIT75 for 75% off. Wow. I have a Segway. Actually, we plugged in the Segways the other day, and the batteries. Why are you laughing? See, this is the problem with the Segway.
No, I was laughing because I thought you had a segue to a new topic.
No, I have a Segway scooter that you ride.
So I was like, oh, not that.
No,
we're
I
on this
love
topic
it.
still.
But yeah, the battery won't charge anymore. I guess we left it sitting too long, but I think it's easy to replace them, so I'm going to find out. They're also covered with mud because the kids, when Michael was little, they'd go off road, they'd ride everywhere, they'd trash the things, but they are so much fun. If you didn't look like such a dork, because you're 9 feet tall when you're riding a Segway. If you didn't,
they have that new C80, which is a moped Segway.
The new stuff, the 9bots, because they got bought by 9bot.
Yeah,
The 9bot stuff's pretty
right.
cool. We have an original Segway before they got bought, so I thought they were pretty cool. I like electric. I'm all electric. We've got electric bikes, Segways, electric vehicles. I think it's great. I just love it. Let's see here. What else should we talk about? Firefox lost almost 50 million users last year. That's depressing. Out of a total of 250-some million. That's a big drop. We talked about this on Security Now. I really think it's important. What do you think? That there be a diversity of browser ecosystems. Firefox is kind of the last holdout. Everybody's gone Chromium-based, not just Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge. I use Vivaldi. I'm using Vivaldi right now. That's Chromium-based. Brave is Chromium-based. Everything is. It's
DuckDuck. Oh wait, no, that's not. That's a browser.
DuckDuckGo has a browser. No, they have a browser. Yeah.
Okay, they do.
Yeah. It's all Chromium-based, which on the one hand I guess is good because then it's maximum compatibility. But on the other hand,
but I think diversity is good.
Yeah.
You know, in the software ecosystem, you know, because if there are vulnerabilities,
exactly. That's what Steve was saying.
You know, if you've got something, you know, alternatives, you can switch to something else.
Do you think that their slide was due to when Edge hit the Mac? Edge for the Mac was dope. It was fastest for a minute, and then it got kludgy. But for the minute, it was like the fastest browser for the Mac.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this out
Edge has
loud.
gotten
I'm
jumped
really
up.
judging.
I
But
think
now
Edge is
jumped up.
junky. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I wonder if that did cause any slide though to Firefox. And I'm also makes me curious, what the heck happened? Like the Edge team, because you came out of the gate like, yeah, we got this. And then I don't know what happened.
It's a huge drop over a year. That's a huge drop. I just think Chrome is more and more dominant, and Edge didn't help. There is Safari. We Mac people use a WebKit-based browser. But what do you think, Doc Rock? Because I know you use Macs all the time. Do you use Safari?
I use Safari as my primary browser, but I'm finding more and more because I am doing a lot of stuff with content creation and doing things where I have to do what we're doing today, call in to someplace else. I always have to use Chrome for that because the one thing that's great about Safari is the security. But that security comes at a cost when I can't do regular stuff, right? Because, you know, and I get what they're trying to do, and I appreciate that. I don't mind having two browsers. Most people, that irritates them. They just say, screw it, and they just use Chrome. So they're kind of, the most flexible, but they're the ones that's also mucking up the security because that's where your friends breach and they get your information, even if you are tight, right? So it's kind of, for a person like me, it drives me nuts. I wish we would just use the right tools for the right job, or everybody, I don't know. I'm on a thing about the consensus, and right now, recently, strangely enough, I've been using Firefox a lot.
I might go back.
Because of Firefox Focus.
I switched to Firefox Focus on iOS is great because it got ad blocker, it's got privacy built in. They're still using WebKit. You can't do anything about that on iOS, but you can at least use user interface on top of WebKit that does more to protect your privacy. I agree with you. I like Firefox Focus.
Their new security stuff has just been really, really nice. And it hasn't seemed, and again, I'm only been messing with it for about 2 months now, it hasn't seemed to cause a performance issue. And that's why I've been enjoying the heck out of Firefox right now. So I'd be super upset if they went, you know.
Still no better battery life on a MacBook than on Safari. Safari really is good on the battery, I think. Chrome is not so good. Somebody in the chat room said, Safari is secure because Apple doesn't spy on you. So here's another laugh. Elon Musk as CEO of Apple. I think this book got it wrong. It's by a pretty reputable reporter, Tim Higgins, the Wall Street Journal.
I know Tim, and you know, I think that there may be certain elements of the story that might be wrong, but I think that the fundamental is probably right. Because I'm.
Oh, you're the first person I've heard to defend this.
We know that Musk and
Tim and Elon both said, we've never talked to each other ever. I've never met the guy.
And I think that that's BS because they were sitting 3 feet apart from each other at a meeting with Donald Trump back in 2017.
Yeah.
They were sitting on
pictures.
There's photos of them sitting on either side of Safra Katz.
That's when he called him Tim Apple, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, they have met, and I'm pretty sure they have spoken. Now, the thing that may be wrong in Tim's story, you know, because what he has is hearsay. He didn't get it from either Elon or Tim. But I think that I'm very, very confident that Tesla did have conversations with Apple about an acquisition during one of the numerous times when they were on the verge of insolvency.
This is what Elon tweeted. Cook and I have never spoken or written to each other ever. There was a point where I requested to meet with Cook to talk about Apple buying Tesla. There were no conditions of acquisition proposed whatsoever. He refused to meet. And by the way, Musk rubs it in by saying Tesla was worth about 6% of today's value. Yeah. In other words, Tim could have got a deal.
I don't believe that tweet. I think Elon's lying. Which he's been known to do once or twice.
Oh yeah.
I think he did request a meeting with Tim. I wouldn't be surprised if Tim did not want to meet directly with him to talk about an acquisition, that maybe he talked to
somebody else.
What's the COO's name?
Luca Maestri.
No. Maybe Maestri. I'm thinking of the other
CFO. The COO is
Jeff
Williams.
Is it Jeff Williams? Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a conversation between Tesla and someone at Apple.
Yeah.
And I also would not be the least bit shocked if Elon insisted that he be CEO of the combined company.
This was the thing.
This is something anybody who's been following Elon for a long time knows that part of the reason why things have gone the way they have at Tesla is because he is a micromanager. He owns like 23% of the stock in Tesla.
Yeah.
And the reason why he has retained that level of control is because after his experiences with PayPal and Zip2 and his previous companies, he did not want to give up control of any of his new companies. So he's got similar stakes in SpaceX and all his other companies.
Yeah.
And I would not be the least bit surprised if a condition of any deal, and this is why no other automaker would ever consider buying Tesla unless it was in bankruptcy and the stock was wiped out, is because nobody else wants Elon to be part of the organization.
Right. So Higgins tweeted that the anecdote comes from Musk's own telling of the story, according to people who heard it. Tim did not hear it, but others did and said, oh, yeah, Elon said this. I could totally see Elon Musk BSing because it sounds like it's a great story.
Yeah.
So I was talking to
Elon
Tim.
This is how story.
Yeah, this is how the story goes. In 2016, I thought, Apple wants to do cars. They should buy Tesla. I called Elon Musk and said, on one condition, I'm CEO. I called Cook, rather. Cook thought he meant staying CEO of Tesla. No, Elon says. I mean CEO of Apple, at which point Tim Apple said F you and hung up on me. I could totally see somebody BSing that story, right?
And Elon would absolutely tell that exact story.
Exactly that way.
Yeah.
So maybe that didn't happen. That story was told by Elon, but that doesn't mean it happened. But the principle,
and it was probably exaggerated.
It was exaggerated. All right, good. Because Higgins, I think, is very well respected. I didn't know you knew him, so that makes a lot more sense. Somebody told him, oh yeah, Elon was going around boasting that Tim Cook hung up on him after saying "F you."
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that Tim Cook would say that to anybody.
Never.
But I totally believe that Elon would insist on being CEO of the combined company.
Yeah. I could see Tim saying, Elon, you're high. What have you been smoking? But that's all. That's all I can hear. Hey, good news. Apple has beaten a patent troll. And the amazing thing about this story, it was actually a federal judge in Marshall, Texas, that threw out the patent. A $308 million patent infringement from a company that I think charitably we could call
they're trolls.
Okay, patent troll. Personalized. I was trying to come up with a better phrase. What do they call them? There is
non-practicing entity.
An NPE, which is a non-practicing entity, personalized media communications. Apparently, the judge Rodney Gilstrap of Marshall, Texas, was a little affronted at the whole thing. He said personalized media gets nothing. In fact, has to cover Apple's legal costs, or at least some of them. But what he was affronted by is a process I didn't know about, that it's no longer done this way. But back in the 80s, when the term of a patent would last 17 years, the term began not when the application was entered, but when you were granted the patent. So personalized media applied in the 80s, but slow-walked it. They didn't go finish the paperwork waiting to see if the patent would be worth anything. The company filed hundreds of applications in the late 80s and 90s when these rules were in effect, but no patents were awarded until 2010. And of course, at that point, they've got, 17 years from 2010, not from the 80s. The judge was, this is ridiculous. The rules have changed. It now, since 1995, your patent term starts with the date of application and lasts for 20 years after that. So this technique was called submarining. And in fact, if you ask me, it's a giveaway that you're a patent troll. If you do that, they apparently would wait to see if the patent was going to be worth anything before following through. They didn't want the clock to start ticking until they knew they could make something out of it.
Wasn't this the same company that had the supposed patent on podcasts?
No,
or it was something. It had a similar name.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we got a demand letter from them for some ridiculous amount of money. They actually made a mistake with us because they asked for so much money that would have been cheaper to defend it in court. I almost sent
that was
letters.
Personal audio.
Personal audio. Okay, that's different. Yeah. This is personalized media based in the fine Sugarland, Texas.
Hey, that's
based
where I'm
out
from.
of
I know.
A P.O. box in Sugarland.
Yeah. They actually filed dozens of lawsuits, and they usually settle because companies go, well, it's going to be cheaper just to give you some money. Last year, a jury in Marshall, I think Marshall's going to get a new reputation. This used to be the home of these patent lawsuits because the juries were so pro the little guy and so anti the big guy. They actually cleared Alphabet of claims it was infringing patents from personalized media for adaptive video streaming. There's a case against Netflix, which they got moved to New York, so that's not going to be as successful as they'd like. Anyway, good. I always like seeing a non-practicing entity take it in the shorts. Is that okay to say that, Stacey? I don't even know what it means.
I don't know.
Stacey's my conscience.
I was like, I don't want that job. Actually, please do not make that my role at all. I would like none of the thoughts I need to have access to be your conscience. Okay. None of them.
You don't have to do that anymore, unless it hits you, or hits me as
if something you say is like, I'm like, oh no, Leo,
don't say that.
I'm happy to do that, but anything else, no.
Okay.
Once I get my punch Leo button,
I can't wait. Actually, I want to talk a little bit. You have a good article about Google's cameras, the Nest Doorbell, the Nest, which is called the Hello, right? Nest Cam.
Well, this is Nest in their media kit calls it the Nest Doorbell (parentheses battery), but on the side, on the imagery, on the side, on the little, it's actually very nice looking. It's called the Hello. It says Hello on the little.
Yeah, I have a Hello
rim.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think it's a Hello, but yeah, it's the new Nest Doorbell.
Yeah, it is pretty. Look at that. It's very jazzy looking. Yeah. But you're not. But you think they could have done? Rim. They could have done more with the AI involved.
Yeah, I found this very disappointing, and I know it's disappointing probably in the same way a tiger mom is disappointed in their children, right? You could be president. Why are you just hanging out with a job, right? So with this, Google has done a couple things. They've said that they can do machine learning on the device for 9 different models, which is very nice on a battery-powered device. They can track packages, people, vehicles, familiar faces if you pay a subscription, and animals, including dogs and cats. Possibly raccoons. The person I talked to was telling me a story about the raccoons. But I'm sad because they don't do anything with this except make notifications a little bit better. And in the smart home, I feel like, hey, if you see a familiar face in the home or coming in the door, maybe you want to disarm the security system. Maybe you want to give me that option. Or I would love to see, if you see my dog on my furniture, play a siren. These are the types of things I think, and Google has beat into us that it is really good at machine learning. And it is usually really good at machine learning. So I'm perplexed as to why they didn't do more with this. I guess that's why I'm disappointed. They're perfectly fine as a revamp.
I personally, have almost no smart devices in our home. In fact, my wife doesn't want cameras inside the house at all. And the only time I've had
that, but that's a doorbell is outside, right?
Yeah. Well, even that, the only doorbell or the only camera we've had on the outside is a Wise camera that I set up in the backyard just to watch a robin's nest that had some robins nested in one of the bushes beside our garage. But we're just not into that stuff. So it's, but it's interesting that Google has not done as much as they could with the AI in this thing.
Yeah.
That's funny. My entire house is like that, except for I can't put a camera on my door because condo, and of course no cameras in the house because condo. But I love having like
wait a minute, condos don't let you have cameras in the house?
We have all the doors have to be the same, right? And so not everybody's going to buy. You're going to get like all myriad versions of just. If you said Nest, not Nest alone, Ring alone. There's like 27 different looking rings. And so, you got people like me who'd buy the high end just because, and then you get other people like, I'm going to get the $5 one I got from, some bootleg place, and it just would make the hallways look bad. So we can't do it. But we're working on trying to get the board to come to some decision to allow it because it's extremely helpful for the UPS man, right?
Yes.
We all get packages every day. So I know my UPS man. He's been my UPS man for 30 years. So like Matt knows Apple days. Okay, I know he's not home yet, but let me call him and let him know I will be
it's
there.
It's an Apple day, Matt.
Minutes.
Leave the phone.
Yo, he knows. He will text me, hey, I'm almost there. I will take off from wherever I am to get, because you still got a sign, right?
Get to know your UPS guy.
Man, it's a marvelous thing. So yeah, I agree. Some of the stuff, that's not quite there yet with the smart home does feel like a letdown when you run into that situation. And so for me, again, a big one, say I'm cooking shabu shabu and I get a false positive on my Nest smoke detector. I can't just say, hey, gee, people, can you kill the smoke detector? I'm Chef Boy. I'll burn them up today. Let it happen. And then they'll be like, okay, but you can't. I like either got to disable it or, mess with the don't pay any attention to this for an hour thing. I'm with Stacey. It should be smoother by now because it's been so long. And I guess my other fight is when you live in a place that only has air conditioning, I can't get a smart thermostat because they all want to work off of HVAC. We don't use H. We only got VAC. So I don't know what to do with it. It's driving me insane.
So do you think, Stacey, part of the reason they don't make these smarter is they're concerned? I mean, poor Google, anytime they do anything with AI, people go, creepy, crossing the creepy line. You think they're worried about that, the creepy line?
I don't know. I mean, so I had in like 2015, I think, 2014 even, a Netatmo camera.
Yeah.
Netamo, I don't know how to say it. And when I had it had familiar faces free, actually. So if it recognized all my family's faces. And if it didn't see them for a while, it would arm the security system, basically. And when it saw us come home, it would disarm it. And that didn't feel creepy. Netatmo did everything locally on the device. The object detection models are running locally on the Google device, which makes it less creepy. So I don't know if it's a creepy factor or if it's just, I just don't understand. And it makes me sad because I do like Google. I do think what they're doing in the smart home is actually pretty nice. So, yeah, I don't know.
Somebody said that, Leo, this week. The only thing creepy about this device is the Google logo. They're not actually doing anything creepy, but just because it says Google, people are going to think that. And I forgot where I heard that. It might have been Renee, but that's the creepy
true. Part is the logo. There's no logo on the Hello doorbell, thank goodness. I do wish it would say things like, Joe's at the door, Or, I mean, it says there's someone at the front door. I was hoping that
Or
these
if you
newer
could customize
capabilities
your
will
messages.
be better. Yeah, like like there's, you give it a good example of the swimming pool example of
Oh, I forgot about that.
yeah, that's a great example.
It is.
Where you point a camera, you can say that there's a zone. So you can say this is a swimming pool zone. What you'd like it to be able to do is say if an adult enters the zone, don't worry about it. But if a kid enters the zone, let me know. Would be really useful.
That would be extremely
huge
useful.
safety feature. So I agree with you on that. Let's take a little break. We can wrap it up because it's waffle time on Bainbridge Island. But
You're not wrong, Leo. You're not wrong.
But first, a word from our sponsor. This show is supported by AT&T Active Armor. We use our phones all the time these days. I mean, come on, everybody does. We're always on them, whether it's live streaming content, catching up with the family on weekly video calls, watching your favorite podcast. That's great. The last thing you want in the middle of a show is a fraudulent call trying to sell you auto insurance. I just, it got to the point, it was so bad for a while that I just stopped answering the phone. Then along comes AT&T with this incredible solution, Active Armor. AT&T makes customer security a priority and helps block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats. And you know what? At no extra charge. Of course, you do have to have a compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/Active Armor for details. And I can say this sincerely. Thank you, AT&T. I can answer my phone again. All right. You did quickly tell me why swarm technologies is going to be important for SpaceX. Actually, Stacey, you talked about this on your.
I had Sarah Spangolo on the show a couple months back. I thought this was both a crazy thing and a really scary thing because Swarm is tiny.
She's
little
one of the
satellites.
founders of Swarm. We should say.
Yes, Sarah Spangolo is the CEO. She's also a former Canadian astronaut. Just in case
nice.
So fancy. They make these things called tiles, and they connect to the tiny little satellites that are up there in low Earth orbit. And the cool thing is they can deliver internet access to things, low bandwidth internet access for $5 a month. I'm actually testing out a Swarm satellite service right now, or eval kit right now.
So she's kind of like got a mini Starlink sort of going. Is it low bandwidth Starlink, basically?
It's a low power WAN, so it's low power wide area network. This is like, how I always talk about the Internet of Things needs connectivity that's cheap, ubiquitous, and
so like the
easy
sidewalk,
to access.
Like Sidewalk, yeah.
It's like Sidewalk, except this is satellite based, and
they have 121 satellites in orbit, so it's a non-trivial network they've got up there.
Yeah, no, they've done, and they're gonna. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I'm writing a story at it actually right now, but I haven't got all the data in there yet. It's got TKs.
I have some stats.
Okay.
750 data packets. 750 data packets a month, but that's $5 a month, and it's global. So who would pay for that? The company that made the IoT device, or would the end user pay for that?
I would think it depends on the business model you want to have.
Yeah.
But probably.
Maybe it'd be part of a subscription, like a Nest subscription.
Yeah, you'd make it, if you were doing consumer, it'd be a subscription. If you were building this is their customer base, a lot of them are like in the industrials kind of world.
Sure.
So they're like monitoring sensors on gas pipelines. And this is great for them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 750 data packets. I don't know how many bits that is, but it's not a lot.
She says they can send email.
Oh.
She wants me to test out sending email. But
that's amazing.
Can do downlink, but not uplink. They have the technical capability for uplink, but they don't advertise it, and it's not where they want to go with this.
Well,
so
it's not going to be up to them anymore because SpaceX is now the owner.
They get cheap connectivity for IoT devices.
And do you think that they'll somehow roll this technology into Starlink, or do they just see this as an adjunct business?
I don't know enough about where Starlink. I'd have to research where Starlink is. Are they in the KU band? Or are they in L band? Or are they?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, I used to cover it. So I feel like Starlink's in a separate band, so you can't roll these together in the sky.
So it'd just be another business that they would do because they've already got these satellites up there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the logical reason to have a dual band receiver down that could do KU or
right.
Right now, if I weren't talking, I'd be furiously looking up what band
Starlink is too expensive to. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to use it for IoT. The receivers are bigger. Everything, none of this makes any sense. So it seems like an interesting expansion of Starlink. What do you think, Sam? I know you follow Elon quite closely.
Yeah, I mean, this. I'm not really familiar with this particular one. I think Starlink, is a fascinating technology. And the ability to provide connectivity everywhere. I love the concept. So far, what I've seen, from early betas of Starlink, it's not as good as was claimed, but maybe when there's
getting better.
another 10,000 satellites up there, then maybe it'll be good.
I follow the Starlink subreddit, and
it's expensive.
It's $100 a month, $500 for the gear, but if you are in an area where you don't get internet,
if there's no cable or fiber
the wilds
where
of
you
Michigan,
it's maybe your only option.
It's a really, for a lot of people, and I have to say, the vast majority of people on the Starlink subreddit on Reddit love it. They're thrilled. And there's a lot of people saying, when do I get it? When do I get it? Elon's also started to imply that it will be mobile at some point, which is, to me, very interesting. Right now, it has to be tied to an address. But at some point, he says, we're going to be able to make this so that you can have a mobile device doing this, which would be very interesting.
I think the real challenge there with the mobile part is, that you have to keep the antenna aimed at a satellite. And this is
the battery power.
Yeah.
And the battery power, yeah.
See, I want it on a cruise ship so I can.
Eli Patel's review of the Starlink beta, he had a hard time just finding a place where he could get a clean view of the sky.
That's the challenge.
Even a tree in the way
no obstructions
was enough
allowed.
To kill the signal.
We have a host who does Floss Weekly, Jonathan. I know who is raving, but he's in Oklahoma, so. Again, it really helps to have no trees. You found out it's
the Twins have that thing too on the New England coast, somewhere not that far away from the headquarters. They actually got one for their beach house.
Oh, nice!
And he said, like it was all good at first, and then the tree,
got to get those trees out of the way.
It became not winter anymore, and the tree bloomed. It's like, I got to move this thing.
You got to put it on a pole taller than the trees. That's the key. You said it's the KAKU band, Stacey?
It is the KA. So we're talking, swarm satellites are down here. Elon's are here. There we go. Up here, Elon.
Yeah.
Sarah's.
Yeah.
And then their radios are going to be transmitting at different decibels, and it does not seem reasonable or possible. Now, Starlink has been focused on building software that can really optimize for coverage and communication. Like, I don't believe Elon and his mobile stuff right now. I'm just going to tell you honestly. So maybe there's some maybe Swarm has
ye of little faith in Elon.
Magical technologies. Or this could be the other thing that Swarm has is access to the same satellite airwaves, so the same spectrum that Orbcomm is using. And I can't remember the wavelengths, the frequency range right off the top of my head. But so this could be a play to get access to more airwaves, which would then could allow Elon to have more capacity on SpaceX.
This is interesting. This is the Swarm eval kit for evaluating 500
That's what
bucks.
I have.
You have one of those?
It's my... Oh, should I tell people?
So this is a solar panel.
This week.
This is a solar panel. The transmitter is just this little antenna. Is all.
Yeah, it's good.
So
it's got
and there's a
little
battery,
Arduino,
so it'll run. Yeah. So you have one. What do you do with it?
I want to take it out next week. I'm hoping to take it out to the Olympics to test actually where I won't have connectivity.
She doesn't mean
right now
the Summer Olympics in Tokyo. She means
the mountains.
Olympic
the mountains.
Just to be clear.
The mountains that are 2 hours to the west of me.
I'd like to take this to the Olympics and stream the swimming event.
It would not work.
You couldn't stream. It's one way. It's one way only. Yeah. And by the way, the data packets are 192 bytes, up to 192 bytes per packet. So it's really a very low bandwidth, but suitable for IoT.
Yeah, it's optimized for sensors.
Yeah. Very interesting.
You know, in companies like Bechtel, you know, when they're doing these things in their bridges, they put sensors in that when they're walking, when they do the bridge walks, they can walk over the bridge. Actually, Bechtel's big in the Bay. So when they walk across the bridge, they can detect if there's any cracks or any issues that you're having, you know, with the cabling or whatever. So, yeah, this would be cool because I was just looking at the picture here, and even with ag, like you can tell if you're having some problem in the field, you can just send a signal and then someone knows to get there right away and solve it. So, yeah, it's kind of cool.
We'll wrap things up with a happy birthday to the World Wide Web, launched 30 years ago, August 6th. The very first website ever launched, Tim Berners-Lee, August 6th, 1991. It was actually, it said the World Wide Web. W3 is a wide area hyperlinked something or other. Pretty cool. It's hard to believe this thing that we take completely for granted is only 30 years old. That, it was invented before or after a lot of us were born, and pretty cool. So there is a project to restore that page. Was launched in 2013. Wait a minute. NPR says, here it is. You can go there. Let's do it. info.cern.ch. Browse the first website. That's it. It's pretty basic. A wide area hypermedia information retrieval initiative aiming to give universal access to a large universe of documents. Would you have invested money in this if you'd read that sentence 30 years ago? I don't think so. Stacey, find out about Swarm. We'll talk again on Wednesday on This Week in Google. We missed you terribly last 2 weeks. I can't wait to get you back. Stacey's website, staceyoниot.com. Subscribe to her free newsletter. Check out the events. And, of course, you got to listen to the IoT podcast Stacey does with Kevin Toffel. Waffles in your future?
Well, something snacky, because I am hungry.
Something snacky coming up. It's great to see you, Stacey. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks your family, too, for giving you up. I'm coming over for Karen's onigiri. Anytime you say, I'll be there. Doc Rock, youtube.com. I'm sorry, Karen's mom. Karen's mom. Yeah. Does Karen make it too?
No, she don't have to cook. She has me and her mom, so she don't have to cook at all.
Nice.
Both of us love cooking. So.
Good deal. Man, you're a catch. YouTube.com/DocRock. Of course, he is the eCam. What do you call yourself with eCam? The eCam outreach.
Community manager.
Community manager.
Guy who gets yelled at the most.
But you can take it, ecamm.com. It's a really useful tool for live streaming. Micah uses it to do iOS Today. So does Rosemary. It's really, really neat. And it's M1 compatible if you've got a Mac. That's really cool. Not just compatible, M1 optimized. Anything else you want to plug, Doctor?
No, really. I'm just doing my thing on my show and, having a good time. And, I just wish everybody would dive in. And if you ever have any questions, anybody, you guys can reach me. I'm always down to help.
You're the best. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks also to Sam. This was fun. It was Old Home Week. Thanks also to Sam Abel-Samad, Guidehouse Insight. He's a principal researcher there. He's my car guy. And if you love autos and auto tech, you'll love Wheel Bearings, his podcast. He does with my good friend Robbie. That's nice. And Nicole. Oops, that's Doc Rock's page. You can show that. And then I'll show Wheel Bearings.
I was like, man, Sam looks better than that dude on that page.
Wheelbearings.media. How's it going? You having fun? I know you just drove the Mustang this week. Robbie was in Switzerland for crying out loud.
He got to go over there to drive the new Mercedes-Benz EQS, their EV.
That's a good deal. So. Roberto Baldwin, of course. This week he's got the new Cadillac Escalade. Holy cow.
we're actually going to record a new episode this evening.
Oh, good.
After we're done with this.
Good.
So.
Okay. Anything else you want to plug, Sam? It's always a pleasure to have you on.
My day job is an analyst at Guidehouse Insights. If you're interested in any research related to emerging technologies around energy use, check it out, guidehouseinsights.com, and check out our blog there where all the analysts write interesting stuff there. And if you need anything, any market research in those areas that you don't find listed on the site already, give us a shout. We'll be happy to talk to you.
It's, we don't plug that enough. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I always mention that you work there, but we don't talk about what you do there. So that's good. Guidehouseinsights.
We're all about energy and sustainability.
Nice. That's a good area to be in these days, I suspect.
Certainly is.
Yes.
It keeps us busy.
Yes. Thank you all for being here. We do This Week in Tech. Oh, you know what I didn't do yet? Do we have a promo? Yes. Let's sneak that in. Real quickly, this is what you missed this week on Twit. Maybe you didn't miss it.
I feel more sorry that we have non-visual listeners for this. I can't describe this picture. Cable room, the aesthetic taste of the person is reflected in the chair that we can see in the foreground. Because, whoa.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Previously on Twit. Hands-on tech.
Today I want to talk to you folks about another laptop that I got the chance to play with. This is a budget-friendly laptop for the corporate person that's always on the go. It is the Lenovo ThinkPad L13 Yoga Gen 2.
All about Android.
We started the week off with Google going ahead and unveiling the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro. And it was revealed that Google is aiming for the top-of-the-line premium level phone here.
Windows Weekly.
Panos tweeted, here's a little sneak peek of the new snipping tool for Windows 11.
This thing must be a Project Reunion app. Because what they've done is they figured out a way to bring modern UI to a legacy app. That's what this is. And that's what the new Paint's going to be. And then there was something else. I don't remember if they're...
And
they might be doing this.
Panos is pumped.
Twit. Bring your brain. We'll do the rest.
That's what years of following Microsoft has done for you.
Yeah, and listen, it's so useful. Like at cocktail parties or in conversations with friends. It's like...
So what do you think of the new snipping tool?
I am the Toastmaster. I'm so glad you asked me that.
Actually, Paul's right now. He's in Mexico. Went to Mexico City, San Miguel de Allende, and Guanajuato. I can't wait to talk to him when he gets back. He's got a lot of stuff he's been visiting. So we'll look forward to Windows Weekly this coming Wednesday, and of course, right after that, This Week in Google. If you are not yet a member of Club Twit, I might want to encourage you to help support the network. It makes a big difference to us. It has really turned out to be a real success. It's a way of supporting Twit by donating $7 a month. We've decided to give you some benefits, including ad-free versions of all the shows. In fact, if you're a Club Twit member, you're not even hearing this because it's cut out of the show. You also get, by the way, audio and video. You also get access to our great Discord, which is a lot of fun. We've really been enjoying the Discord. I think it's my new social network. And the Twit Plus feed, which has all the good stuff before and after the shows that hits the cutting room floor. We just scrape those up, we package them into sausage and send it your way via the Twit Plus bonus content feed. All of that, $7 a month, but mostly you do it for the warm and fuzzy feeling that you're helping support what we do here at Twit, and we really are grateful. If you want to know more, twit.tv/clubtwit. We do This Week in Tech every Sunday afternoon, 2:30 Pacific. That's 5:30 Eastern Time, 21:30 UTC. You're invited to watch us live if you want, no charge. There's a live audio and video stream at twit.tv/live. If you're watching live, chat with us live. Of course, there's the IRC, which has been around now for almost as long as the World Wide Web. I think I started doing it in 92 at irc.twit.tv. There's also the brand new Discord channel. If you're a member of Club Twit, you can chat live. And, of course, do the animated GIFs in our Discord channel. You can get shows on demand after the fact on our website, twit.tv. There's a YouTube channel devoted to all of our shows. Each show has its own channel. or you could subscribe in your favorite podcast client. Do me a favor, if they allow reviews, on the Apple Podcast or Pocket Casts or Google, leave us a 5-star review. Let the world know. Share your love. We appreciate it. Helps spread the word about This Week in Tech. And, of course, if you listen on demand, you might want to chat on demand. We have not only the Discord, we have a discourse, our own forums at twit.community, and our social media at twit.social. It's the Fediverse. It's a Mastodon. I'll give you a login to that someday, John. twit.social. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It's a lot of fun. I'll see you next week, or maybe during the week, during some of our other shows. Another Twit is in the can. Take care.